Hello, Something Guys and Gals. This is Something Guy 912. During the peak of the pandemic and the rising tension and civil unrest, the sophistry amongst our political betters, and an economy soon to crash from this demand to lock down, 2020 was shaping to be one of the worst years ever to be alive in the 21st century. So, while we were locked down during this pandemic, the only thing we could turn to is the video games, which, even in that regard, was a utter disaster, with disaster pieces like The Last of Us Part 2, Cyberpunk 2077, and of course, Doom Eternal. But why Doom Eternal, you might ask, seeing as compared to the former two, was largely relegated amongst the stain of games we got in that year, and I myself distinctly remember being excited in a new title to follow up from the well-rounded Doom 2016, Doom Eternal at the time being one of the only few new titles I was even remotely interested in. And when I had first played it, it was mostly indifferent to the experience, but at the time walked away from it having enjoyed the time that I did play it. Of course, that was until after scrutinizing it further once the visual stimuli washed away did I realize that this game is littered with problems. So much so that the more I think about it, Doom Eternal evolved from satisfactory to a flawed experience to strictly a game I cannot in good conscience call good. And that would be all fine for me to rest with that knowledge that I simply didn't enjoy, and keep that to myself. But a lot of my ire for Doom Eternal doesn't come from that game, but the kinds of utterly strange defenses that I've seen regarding that game. Which is why I'm going to format this video in a sort of semi-review of aspects of Doom Eternal that don't work, as well as a critique of the people who claim that this will revolutionize the FPS gaming experience. I found it quite difficult for me to put it into words how I would even go about making this video, as I originally wanted to call it Doom Eternal Simps, or Doom Simp Eternal in regards to those defenders, but felt maybe that title was a bit harsh and not getting across my issues with the game that would invalidate their defenses of it. I wasn't even certain if I would even try to break down issues regarding the game and find myself locked head to head with the people that I'm going to respond to, but nevertheless I've finally settled on how this will be structured, so now I need to tell you who the defenders I'm responding will be. First on the list, and most notably, is Under the Mayo, who's made several videos defending this sacred cow of his, such that he basically treats any FPS shooter that doesn't capitulate to Doom Eternal's combat structure as vastly inferior. But the two I want to focus on are the "you can't be creative in this game" and his response to several other YouTubers on their criticism of the Marauder, and possibly a smidge of his "lower ammo makes you a better player" vid for good measure. Second and last on the hit list is A British Potato, a YouTuber who I've shared past spates with regarding Doom Eternal's quality, who's a little bit too uncharitable and aggressive for his own good regarding his defense of the game. The video I want to cover is his response loosely to the EFAP stream where they talked about Doom Eternal's problems, in which you'll find me actually agree with him on some key issues regarding the criticisms of it, but nevertheless find his approach a bad tactic to convince anyone of what he is saying. So with all of that forwarding out of the way, let's fist this jar of mayo.
It's impossible to say objectively that something is fun, because people have different ideas of fun. Just look at my Duskers video and see all the people saying it looks boring, and just as many people saying it looks awesome. So is Doom Eternal more fun than Doom 2016? I think it is, and I'd say the majority of players would agree.
Nothing to disagree on yet, although I find the topic of what makes a game fun a bit pointless as it's purely subjective in nature. People find their own fun even in the most mediocre of games.
However, the one thing that gets under my skin is when people say that Doom Eternal doesn't let you be creative.
Yeah, it doesn't, but let's see how he retorts that claim.
And I'm sorry, that's just not true.
Oh, so you aren't, huh? Well, let's see. So Doom Eternal has this emphasis on both a limited ammunition supply and enemies that can be dished away either with a one-trick pony or a weapon swap spam. So when you put those two together, you find a lot of the same gameplay of Doom Eternal to be extremely repetitive. Either the player is using the same trick to kill a monster they were told by the tutorial, or people like UTM and ABP, who have these weapon swap spams to a T that's honestly hard to understand what's happening. Now, the counter to this claim is that, well, you can swap to anything and that's creative. But here's where you're wrong, bucko, because there's no cohesion between what you're swapping to, and we're going to find out exactly why soon here.
Doom Eternal gives more creative options to the player, despite what some people say in their sprawling rants.
As UTM goes on a sprawling rant, the blind man says, calling others blind.
Doom 2016, as great of a game as it is, does not incentivize creativity. You fight every enemy basically the same way.
I'm going to put this line of his as a important footnote because he will make the claim that because Doom 2016 gives you a plethora of ammo for your guns, that you get pigeonholed into using only the super shotgun or the Gauss cannon. The difference here is that even in a situation where you do have a reasonable amount of ammunition, you don't have to use the power weapons. Even for as easy as my experience with playing Doom 2016 was, I played on Hurt Me plenty, I still used all of the weapons at my disposal. But we will have to tackle the subject of what games force or allow you to do in their own games, as UTM seems confused on that subject too. But in Doom Eternal, you have to weapon swap or use the correct silver bullet on certain enemies to get any leg up, otherwise you're going to die a lot. So wouldn't that also be fighting every enemy basically the same way? Also, I find it a bit disingenuous to use footage of someone just only using the SS as an example when it's clearly ripped footage prior to making the argument to make it sound better on paper.
It incentivizes the heaviest power attacks possible over anything, because there isn't much resource management involved, or enemy-specific strategy, or faltering with grenades, or benefit to targeting enemy weapons. You fought a Cacodemon the same way you fought a Mancubus, the same way you fought a Baron, the same way you fought a Hell Knight. Just shoot at it with the strongest weapon and move on.
Isn't that going to be ironic when you criticize people who use the shotgun grenade to take out the Cacodemon in the Doom Eternal, or use a heavy cannon sniper shot to take out the Mancubus's turret, or any other situation in Doom Eternal where you must fight a monster the same way?
You could come up with creative ways to play the game on your own, but there wasn't much built-in incentive to do so.
I didn't even have to force myself to play creative. I just subconsciously used every weapon at my disposal, which is why Doom Eternal is so clunky on this forced creativity playstyle when it simultaneously hemorrhages your ammunition, yet expects you to kill enemies in more gleeful measures. It makes no sense for me to kill a Cacodemon in any other way that requires more ammo to do because of the fact ammunition is so limited in the game, and that the game's tutorial insists upon this fact.
I'd like everyone to check out a video called What Smash Can Learn from Doom Eternal. It really lays out how well this all works. I'm going to show you a couple clips and expand on it a bit.
And here is one of my major problems with Doom Eternal as a FPS shooter. It isn't one. It's an awkward as fuck brawler with FPS elements slapped onto it, where everyone who plays it plays like your little brother who just played Mortal Kombat for the first time, mashing buttons and claiming that it was a playstyle. Yeah, sure, you can find certain combos in the hours that you play Doom Eternal, but when every Tom, Dick, and Harry starts doing the same weapon swap spam because they were told that's how you play, then every video just looks like someone mashing buttons to win. Doom Eternal shouldn't have anything to learn from a platforming brawler, nor should Smash Ultimate learn anything from an FPS shooter. They are completely at odds with one another, so insisting that they must mesh will cause a distaste many got playing Doom Eternal.
This is the single greatest issue that most fighting game single-player content has. Unlike with a human opponent, there's basically never a reason to use combos, or to use advanced movement techniques, or to play remotely similarly to how you would play against a person, which is when a fighting game is at its most fun.
It's funny how Under the Mayo uses this to prove that Doom Eternal mastered this technique, when you're also fighting computer enemies who encourage no sense of using combos or playing similarly to how you play against a human player. Which, speaking of PvP, Doom Eternal's Brawl mode absolutely suffers as a result of this adherence to the weapon swap spam, as you're fighting both human and computer players, assuming you are the Doom guy instead of the Hellspawn. Meaning you can't, in this case, replicate the same way you play as you do on the single player mode. Like, I can imagine taking this line note for note to regard the problems of Doom Eternal's playstyle, and nary a difference would be found within it.
Now, I know at this point it might sound like I'm just saying someone should code an AI that is as complicated as a person, but that's not it. It's not about getting the player to play against something as complicated as a human. It's about getting a player to just do the things they would do against a human. In Quake, a cool player is constantly moving around, switching weapons, they're making decisions, and these actions are the key to engagement.
Yeah, the problem with comparing Quake 3 to Doom Eternal is that Quake 3 doesn't burn you with less ammo, rather that you have to strategize where the power-ups and weapons are on the map to make full use of controlling the zone. And unlike Doom Eternal, Quake 3's weapons, despite having more ammunition, rise and fall in use depending on the situation. because Quake 3 knew that while you are playing an arena shooter, you aren't playing a fucking brawler.
And the Doom developers identified those actions and called it the fun zone. Everything they wanted the player to do in order to be engaged fell into that zone. And while most of the options in the fun zone were available to the player in Doom 2016, they realized that people wouldn't necessarily choose those options.
Simultaneously, you can't also claim players wouldn't naturally keep using the weapon variety present, assuming that a weapon isn't strictly better than another, which is definitely a problem in Doom 2016, where the shotgun and machine gun are basically useless once you have the SS and chain gun in tow. But making it so ammo is scarce and pigeonholing these weapons to a specific use case isn't exactly the way to get people into the fun zone. Because you see, the fun zone is complete bullshit. It was an excuse made by the developers to trick people into thinking that by playing this specific way that it is what they want, and draping it into the positive context of calling it fun.
If you don't move around, you die. If you try to just use one weapon, you die. If they're not in the fun zone, Doom Eternal will discourage, punish, or even kill the player.
See what I mean? The fun zone is just code for conditioning players into this specific routine fashion. It's not fun, it's rudimentary at best. Now, I know we started off this saying that fun is extremely subjective in nature, and sure, maybe people find fun in doing the strap cycle, but trying to claim that the fun zone is indicatively fun simply because it's called that is also disingenuous at best.
Doom's fun zone is not all that different from what I think would be fun in a fighting game, but there's almost no player accountability in Subspace Emissary or any similar fighting game mode. Being rewarded for playing well is good, but player accountability, having consequences for your actions, is the foundation for challenge. This is what makes the game hard but fair.
Doom Eternal? Fair? Now that's quite a bridge you're selling there, but of course also subjective, but seeing as this isn't Under the Mayo speaking, we're likely not going to get much elaboration.
The challenge comes from being able to match the skill level required by the game.
More like arbitrated by the game, seeing as the extra lives, sentinel armor, and over-reliance of glory kills were used as compensation for its poor balance of fun and difficulty.
I should be caring about what attacks I'm doing and who I'm fighting. When it comes to prioritizing targets, Doom uses things like the Arachnotron's turret. It can hit you when you're moving, and it does a lot of damage, but it's a weak point that can be eliminated with a specific weapon.
This is going to become incredibly ironic when I dig into APB's vid, where he proclaims that the game doesn't teach you to use only a specific weapon for a target. But even in UTM's vid, where he claims that Doom Eternal allows you to be creative, he seems to leave this clip in that counters that statement.
Doom has a plethora of weapon-specific counters, encouraging the player to switch weapons constantly in order to be optimal with damage.
More like aimlessly, as you've seen plenty of compilations of players just spinning the wheel metaphorically to win because there was no account on the developer's part of people doing that. And I'm sorry, but apparently not doing this is playing the game wrong, yet the developers who play this game don't do that. So are they wrong too?
The way I look at it, you can swap out the Doomslayer's weapons for all the different moves a player has in a plat fighter.
Again, that's the problem with Doom Eternal. It can't be both a brawler and an FPS at once, because people who play Fox McCloud for the first time aren't going to have a clue as to his moveset or the effectiveness thereof, so they are just going to mash all the buttons aimlessly. But at least in brawlers, this is accounted for by more competent people who understand the button controls and can easily counter those button mashers. But in Doom Eternal, it almost encourages aimless, one-track minded, spinning the wheel and mashing the button gameplay while punishing people who are trying to use each weapon effectively beyond the silver bullet mindset.
I'm not saying that Doom systems should be copied exactly, although that would probably still be great, but having something like the weak point system, but relating to a character's specific move, would motivate the player into using all aspects of the character's kit, instead of just repeating a few options that are the best.
Well hey, Doom Eternal's already got you covered on that front.
In Doom's fun zone, they call it weapon switching, but in a fighting game, I'll just call it the diverse use of a moveset.
Both of which get axed by people who are just button mashing, but Doom Eternal rewards it while Smash punishes you for it. Interesting dichotomy there.
Having the freedom of options is pointless if there isn't a purpose for each of those options.
Conversely, I don't think having a weapon that only does or counters one thing particularly good really enforces a freedom of options, while having this cognitive dissonance that weapon swap spam is the next echelon.
So I want to just add that weak points do have weapon counters, but that doesn't just mean one weapon. Weak points can be dealt with different weapons, and there are non-weapon solutions too, like blood punch or triggering barrel explosions.
In some cases, it is just one weapon. In the fucking DLC, you have to use a microwave beam, and only the microwave beam to deal with a new enemy, or using Blood Punch for the armored Mancubus, or the overcharged plasma rifle to disable the Doom Hunter's sled. There is no other option, and don't tell me somehow using a ballista shot on one Cacodemon is somehow more practical than a single shotgun round in comparison.
Having an obvious and quick option that favors one weapon is the game's way of encouraging the player to drop the desire to depend on the one weapon they're comfortable with.
Okay, I have to ask, does anybody who gets comfortable with the game solely stick to just one weapon when they have plentiful amounts of ammo? Like, I played Quake 4 on a pretty hard difficulty, and I can assure you I was still using most of the weapons. The lightning gun fucking sucks, and the grenade launcher gets a bit outclassed by the rocket launcher in most cases, given to me in spite of the high amount of ammo I had for all of them. While there was still a bit of ease for me in the game, it wasn't like I was just spamming the hyper blaster or the railgun, because obviously I would want to save that ammo for potentially harder enemies along the way.
Which instills good habits. It gets them to think about adapting their approach on the fly and switching weapons frequently. If you take someone who has only played, say, Call of Duty or Gears of War, and you sit them down in Doom 2016, do you think they're going to be cycling constantly through their vast weapon inventory, having fun with every option there is?
Well, that's a bit disingenuous, because both Gears of War and Call of Duty make it so you only have 2 main weapons and a sidearm most of the time, compared to a wheel of roughly 8 to 10 weapons for both games. More importantly, I've played Gears of War, and while there were certain weapons I always deferred to, the Torque Bow, Bolt Talk, and Hammer Burst mainly, that game still incentivizes you to use whatever you can find, because you'll never know if you can get ammo for the weapon you're using now. I figured you wouldn't try to compare a 3D cover shooter and a military FPS, or Spunk Gargle Wee Wee for the Yahtzee vets, to a revised boomer shooter, but hey, if it makes your argument cogent.
No, they're gonna find the 1 or 2 weapon tactic that suits them the best and works effectively, and they'll do that for the whole game. I'm sure of it.
Simultaneously, something that UTM and APP will praise about Doom Eternal, but also mock others for complaining the game doesn't have. Again, going to be real ironic when we tackle the Marauder vid, where most of that tactic belies in the very 2 weapons that UTM says people would just rely on in 2016 to deal with him.
You know why? Cause I'm an enthusiast of old school classic shooter design like Quake 3, and even I fell into that trap.
Well, apparently not, if you couldn't tell the difference between Quake 3 and Gears of War beyond them using guns.
On my first playthrough of Doom 2016, I used the stun bomb in combination with the mastered explosive shot for the combat shotgun in nearly every single encounter. It was fun, but it was a habit I fell into and got comfortable with.
Wait, I thought Doom 2016 only made you rely on the super shotgun and the Gauss cannon. Is this creative gameplay? Because I didn't do that shit simply because I wasn't aware it was something you could do to begin with. Also, all of this just boils down to it being a you problem, because nowhere does the game force its playstyle upon you other than, as you mentioned, being extremely effective. But how are we going to complain about being extremely effective in a shooter when that's the thing you're trying to praise Doom Eternal for doing in regards to the weapon swap spam?
And the game never pushed me to get out of it. Eventually, I started playing in more dynamic, fun ways in other playthroughs, but only when it occurred to me to force myself to play that way.
I know that I'm going to call a anecdotal Andy on Under the Mayo here, but all of this just again sounds like a personal issue he had going into it. Because never did I force myself to use all the weapons, at least all the weapons that weren't just inferior versions of the same weapons. I kept using the chain gun and the rocket launcher in spite of having the Gauss cannon or super shotgun, and I used the BFG sparingly as one would. Not to mention, wouldn't his complaint that Doom 2016 doesn't direct him to be creative mean that Doom Eternal does, in a way, force you to play a certain way that you're uncomfortable with?
So now we have Doom Eternal, and the game by design is motivating the player to switch weapons for specific weak point kills. From here, we get to the vastly different player experiences depending on what kind of person you are. You can look at this design and say that Doom Eternal is forcing you to do stuff, and that limits player creativity. Or you can look at it and say Doom Eternal is encouraging you to think beyond just your basic options.
Yes, because broadening your horizons has never been more expansive than spinning the wheel like it's fucking Wheel of Fortune.
What I appreciate about Doom Eternal is that the highly mobile weapon switching style was built into the gameplay. The creative, fun style of play is now the standard, but that does not mean the player isn't able to play with their own creativity.
If you built the game to lean very heavily on fast weapon swaps, erratic, almost autistic movement, and aimless spam, then of course people are going to feel like the game is hardly creative. And don't give me no bull that this style is the standard for creative fun play. You literally complain that Doom 2016 gave you a creative style to play, and you don't like it because it was all you ever did, which again, isn't the problem with the game.
It's really weird to see people in Doom 2016 naturally playing with fast movement and weapon switching and accuracy, then turn around and complain that Doom Eternal actually provides benefits for playing that way.
Oh yeah, sure. There was literally no other difference between what other gameplay options they changed, like the limited ammo supply, the silver bullet tactic that you claim is creative, the fact that any of these creative options are filtered by your limited weapon pool in the very early levels of the game, or having to run around for the one fire enemy you didn't happen to kill in the onslaught to fetch for ammo. Really engaging, I'm sure, for peeps like UTM and APP. Like, if you want to try to bullshit me this way, you're gonna have to do a lot more convincing than that.
Acting like other games don't have rules to establish the gameplay and guide the player. Complaining about managing ammo and taking damage, when these things are precisely what makes you play the game better.
But I'm sorry, but honestly adopting these strategies doesn't make me feel better about playing the game. It makes me feel like I'm just going through a routine, like I'm just being fed along the queue line with a corridor getting narrower by the second. Not to mention, how exactly are you going to bemoan people who do try to save ammo by using the silver bullet technique, while also saying that the game wants you to save ammo? It's this complete disregard for any cohesion in a lot of the design process behind Doom Eternal that hardly any other shooter afterwards adopted it, save for Shadow Warrior 3. And you don't really hear people singing the praises of that game beyond you, because as long as it's a Doom Eternal clone, it must be good.
Maybe some people are upset that after hundreds of hours of mastering and dominating Doom 2016, they couldn't just jump into Eternal as a new game and play the same way.
Once again, real nice use of that gameplay footage, and in no way trying to imply that mastering 2016 was just and only that. Curious how bad faith you're going to be down the line.
But hey, when someone complains about Super Mario platforming, what can we really say?
Oh, you mean the platforming that exists and only exists right out the time with no cohesion in terms of the map layout? Oh, how about those wonderful invisible walls and objects that would seem as though traversable? Curious, never had that problem with Doom 2016 because the map design at least had some believability to it rather than looking like a fucking cartoon.
Some people are so stubborn they see the design of a game and they suddenly become blind. They see the chainsaw as necessary for ammo maintenance, and instead of incorporating occasional strategic chainsaw kills into the rhythm of their fight, using those moments to check their equipment cooldowns or using the invincibility frames and teleportation to avoid massive damage, and also locating in-room ammo pickups, they burn all their ammo and run around crying about how the game won't let them have fun.
Well, let's see. The chainsaw having 3 pips makes no sense, as there are only demons who take either 1 or 3 pips to kill, making 2 pips an utter waste. Especially when there's enemies like the Whiplash or Carcass that you would think should only take 2, but don't. More importantly, in FPS shooters, the idea of ammo conservation is absolutely crucial to success. So when you deliberately cripple that to the use of an item while trying to drill it into their skull to spam effectively, what outcome are they going to find themselves in? Or what about situations in which they were using your flawless tactic only to find they killed all the fodder demons, or how the ammo pickups isn't a counter to the limited max ammo pool when 8 fucking shotgun rounds doesn't count for shit as a pickup? Like, seriously, trying to adopt your tactics is like playing Connect 4 using both colors simultaneously to the point where the whole board is filled with none connected.
I guess not realizing that the better they play, the less chainsaw is used as strictly an ammo refill when you run out.
You know, if you're going to be condescending, you better put some enthusiasm behind it. Also, the chainsaw is only used for ammo refill and not for actually ridding targets, which is another design flaw of the chainsaw. People aren't using it to kill big threats easily, it's just so they can survive an endless slew of just getting by playing Doom Eternal. But hey, it does earn its namesake well, eternally getting by and never really getting good because the game can't let you get good.
They see the Arachnotron has a weak point, and then they complain that they have to target it or fight an unfair fight.
Or when people rightfully use a silver bullet, you and APP will insist, that's the wrong way to play it, completely betraying both what the developers had in mind, not like they already betrayed that by having you spin the weapon wheel like slots, and whatever sad attempt at a defense you're trying to make for them.
Just those two options, nothing else.
Yes, weapon wheel spam or silver bullet, nothing else. Your only good point so far by me implying that's what you meant.
You have to either focus on the weak point or fight a frustrating imbalanced fight.
Yeah, no counter there. He thinks him saying this sardonically means it's not true, but it is.
Not using a grenade to stagger plus some micro missiles in the full auto shotgun, not a remote detonation rocket plus a blood punch to break the weak point in the super shotgun, not a rocket ballista combo into a grenade to turn around and focus on other enemies while he dies, not an ice bomb and a rocket with a meat hook air launch into a downward ballista and some sticky bombs on the retreat. Oh no creativity here.
When I first heard this, I couldn't believe the mental gymnastics this motherfucker was pulling. So he's attributing creativity to pulling whatever shit I have out of my hat and see what sticks. Because I guarantee you, when he was doing all this shit, none of the combos he just laid out were going into his head. You can even see in the way he's flailing about his random assortment of weapons, there's no strict consciousness going into the combos. This is, as I said, like as if I opened up Mortal Kombat 11, played Noob Saibot, button mashed and said, see, I was doing combos. This isn't creativity. This is a Jackson Pollock painting in gameplay form.
Doom Eternal forces you to play one way. Give me a break.
Yes, begone the silver bullet technique. Throw shit on the wall and see what sticks. Which is the best way to describe many other facets of Doom Eternal's design. Sure, let's throw some random purple goo that completely restricts your movement. Let's have an enemy that you have to fight like a Dark Souls enemy that can't be fought intuitively with any other enemy. Let's have a live system. Let's have floating weapons and health, but not floating ammo and armor. Let's have a over-the-top and campy story that makes no sense, but still thrust into you despite your disinterest in it. This kitchen sink mentality may prove profitable initially, but it sours very quickly when you can't hold all of these convoluted game design choices together.
Maybe the complaining comes from the flame belch, that they're forced to burn enemies to get armor while fighting.
My problem with the flame belch is the same as the chainsaw. You don't use it to actually dispatch enemies, despite what you would believe should be something that does considerable damage. I don't inherently have an issue with it being one of the few ways to get armor, although having a challenge lock to the super shotgun in order to get armor another way, which means I'd have to only use it to get it, which by your logic is bad game design a la Doom 2016, doesn't really enthuse people that its existence is only for that.
Okay, I guess you're forced to shoot your guns and move around too. What's the problem?
Okay, here's where the real semantical bullshit of this video really drives home. I guess I have to explain it to him in plain English. People naturally understand that video games have a allowance on what you can or can't do in a game. Like, for example, people don't expect playing Doom Eternal that you can dispatch the enemies peacefully with dialogue or whatnot. So of course, you don't hear people complain about it. But when this game does pigeonhole you to that very mindset of random bullshit go, while you try to insist it's acting creative, don't try to clap back by saying, well, the game forces you to move. Because at that point, you've completely lost the argument. Because even if we could see that point, wouldn't that still be a problem with Doom Eternal?
It's a mechanic that keeps the player active in their own survival, which allows the enemies to be more aggressive and smarter and larger in numbers. How is that a bad thing?
Well, I don't know, Mr. Bad Faith. Please explain to me how the straw man you made in your head would reason that movement is a bad thing while you yourself literally use that argument to counter the notion of games being limited in their design.
In Doom 2016, and in fact in many shooters, if you just keep moving, you're not going to get hit. This was 2016's way of incentivizing the player to stay on the move. They rewarded constant movement with you avoiding enemy projectiles. The game punished you for trying to hide or use cover or stand still. It sounds like the game is forcing you to play one way.
Again, I am just utterly baffled that he's going to pull this semantical argument. Did you happen to notice in his attempt to demonstrate this fact that he couldn't also shoot back or close the distance on enemies? It's like as if the game can coerce you to do something but doesn't force you to do it. Or, wait a second, didn't you just say earlier that you were forced into that mindset with Doom 2016 despite you saying the game never told you to play that way? Or better yet, how would this make Doom Eternal good if we sincerely use this argument on the face of it? that game forces even more movement out of the player than expected, and more importantly, people aren't going to be playing Doom 2016 with the idea that you can stand still or hide behind cover to play, so that's just you characterizing people playing a Doom game as retarded. And how does no one in the comments knows that your counter to Doom Eternal, limiting your creativity, was literally, well, all games do, so shut up. This is seriously why you need to redraft your scripts before you make a completely indefensible argument.
See how dumb that sounds?
Yeah, it is really dumb, which is odd why you would think that would be in any way comparable to people's criticisms about Doom Eternal's creative design, but I forget, this is a false equivalency you're trying to make here.
People say Doom Eternal doesn't let you play how you want. Well, Doom 2016 didn't let you play the way you want if what you want is to use cover and sit in one place.
Does this argument sound familiar to any of you? It's basically on par with criticizing aspects of a reboot of a long-loved series and people defending by saying, well, the original also had these problems, completely forgoing why the criticisms were brought in the first place. Also, what person has the expectation in their mind that they can play Doom Eternal or Doom 2016 like a goddamn cover shooter, unless they've not touched a single iota of the Doom franchise?
So the game pushed you into always moving, but unfortunately movement was so good that if you just ran in a circle, nothing would ever hit you, so the game got too easy.
Yeah, the movement was so good that said enemies are still alive because most players aren't just going to strictly move or shoot only. Also, I thought you said this argument was dumb, yet you seem to use it as the linchpin for countering any criticism regarding Doom Eternal's faults as, well, Doom 2016 was also bad, therefore Doom Eternal good.
Doom Eternal fixes this by increasing the attacks coming your way, and also having attacks that can hit you even if you're moving.
Yeah, really incentivizes that movement if even the one thing that most boomer shooters encourages still punishes you for doing. I'm sure that's not in the least way frustrating when you're taking damage from seemingly nowhere despite your best intentions to strafe and dart around constantly.
Sure, when you're moving, you're going to avoid a lot of damage.
But wait, Under the Mayo, doesn't that mean that Doom Eternal forces you to move as you just stated?
But you're still going to be taking some, and the Flame Belch is how you offset that constant damage by healing yourself while you're fighting.
Which again is a completely counterintuitive way of understanding the items at your disposal. You don't use the Flame Belch to apply some DOTs, you don't use the Ice Grenade to stall, you don't use the Grenade to crowd control, you use these to do some other ancillary thing that isn't pertinent to actually disposing of the enemies that are bombarding you. I would like to feel like the chainsaw was more than just an ammo pickup that could strategically kill a bothersome enemy in a pinch so that when I was saving ammo, remember, apparently doing that is wrong as we will find out, for it that I could reward my patience with killing a Baron of Hell or a Whiplash when the opportunity arrives.
It keeps the encounters so much more engaging, and it's pretty shocking to hear people complain about being forced to maintain their armor supply in combat when that very mechanic is what allows the AI to be more intense.
A lot of Doom Eternal's difficulty feels more arbitrary than coming naturally through its gameplay, however. Usually when I died in Doom 2016, I could reasonably assume that it was of my own mistake of bad positioning or wasteful use of items. But with the live system in mind, Doom Eternal just cheap shots you half the time, and it needed that system in order to compensate for how unfair it is most of the time. More importantly, having the armor be relegated to an item that isn't facilitating damage, or a weapon challenge that would require them to use that gun exclusively, literally pigeonholes them to get cold feet on ever using the Flame Belch because it's your only means to soften the blow of enemies. Or, better yet, how the glory kill system has become absolutely fundamental to your survival, rather than a niche use in Doom 2016 with the off chance to save you from certain death, like in Doom Eternal, further exacerbated by how it having iframes is exploited to change between the aforementioned Cacodemon grenade into glory kill state one after another.
Now let's look at some specific enemies in Doom Eternal and see the creative ways we have to deal with them.
Oh boy, I wonder if the Marauder makes any mention of this, or even the Titan that literally is just shoot it until it dies.
Let's go with the Cacodemon. When you meet your first Cacodemon, you learn that a sticky bomb or equipment grenade in his mouth will put him in a glory kill state for a quick kill. It's a great way to take him out if you have a moment in the chaos to make that shot. You can do that and kill him immediately, or you can let him sit there for a bit. Maybe light up some fodder on the ground with the Flame Belch, shoot a rocket on the ground, and then get the glory kill. You can one-shot a Cacodemon with a charged Arbalest shot, You can rocket ballista quick swap combo to put him in a glory kill state and meat hook up for the glory kill. You can shoot a rocket and a few micro missiles and then meat hook in for the super shotgun kill for an armor refill. Or if you're like me, you'll switch to the full auto and use the Cacodemon as a +6 shotgun shell recharge.
See, you claim these are creative choices, but inadvertently waste more of that limited ammo that people would try to save for other enemies in the midst of the combat. So here's the question. Why would I use any of the other options when a single shotgun shell can do the job just as easily, if not quicker than those? Like, sure, it's flashy for your video, and great for you to state post-hoc how these are combos you totally had running consciously as you did them, to do them, but like your last example, you laced literally 10 shotgun rounds, a rocket, and a ballista shot over a single shotgun round, and all of those rounds would be gone to other enemies littered throughout, in twice the time it took the shotgun grenade to put him in that position. You'll claim that these other strategies are more safe when you just emphasize that even moving around means you can get hit, so time is of the essence. So again, where is the creativity?
The first option's benefit is that it's fast and gives a glory kill. The cost is that you need to switch to the sticky bombs, possibly in the middle of a hectic combat moment, and make sure your aim is good.
The absolute audacity of this motherfucker to claim that the downside of this strategy is you might have to swap weapons, when swapping weapons in this game is the creme de la creme to getting anything done, with the added touch of probably in a hectic combat, like as if any of the other combos you just did weren't also done in a hectic combat environment. Oh, I could do the triple no-scope, double shotty Gauss cannon, fuck my asshole, but I might have to do it in a combat scenario in a game where it's all about the combat. Do you actually hear the arguments you're making?
The second option's benefit is quick disposal at a long distance. The cost is being vulnerable to attack while charging the ballista shot.
Distance of which is countered as enemies basically charge your position all the time, and with the aforementioned movement, you'll eventually or inadvertently arrive in close proximity to them. So, how is wasting ammo in a flashy way encouraging good gameplay habits?
The third's benefit is integrating the Cacodemon into the easy flow of your combat movement and weapon switching, and dealing fairly quick damage. The cost is your skill in weapon switching, holding the target in your aim, and navigating the demons around you.
Huh. I didn't notice much of that so-called weapon variety there. Looked like all you were using was the super shotgun and ballista, which is quite ironic given you bemoaned Doom 2016 in that it only encourages you to use those two weapons. Funny that when that is the strategy most say with dealing with a marauder in tow, but we'll get to that vid, don't worry.
And so on and so on. The game gives you a lot of ways to be creative and different reasons to use your different options.
No, not really. If you tell me, especially the game tells me, that this Cacodemon can be easily dispatched with this one trick doctors hate, I'm going to lean to that. Any other use is either highly costly to my ammo or detrimental to any future threats I might encounter. And Doom Eternal has no consideration for the moment-to-moment thoughts one would go through to consider their ammunition supply. It thinks that using the chainsaw helps mitigate that when even in the moments of calm, people are going to get gun-shy about using their precious ammo on even the most rudimentary enemies, which doesn't evoke good gameplay habits in a first-person shooter.
That's not just player choice, it's the best kind of player choice.
Well, that's quite the claim you're making there, seeing as even in your demonstration you don't really make it seem as though the first option is really any worse. In fact, better than the other two.
Let's look at a Mancubus. If a Mancubus is harassing you, you can take out his cannons with a precision bolt, or a sticky bomb, or a ballista. If you don't want to deal with the weak points, you can stay back and lob rockets and ballista until he melts. If you want to disrupt his movements, you can throw a grenade to falter him and hit him with a rocket, ballista, super shotgun. Or even quicker, you can throw a grenade and dash in for a blood punch and super shotgun point blank. Maybe you want to play a little more dangerous and meat hook in right away, and then mid-air switch to plasma rifle and use the heat blast to disable both cannons. Hit him with a blood punch and backdash into plasma until he's ready for the glory kill. I know how creative you can be in this game because I know players that play the game differently than I do, and I've developed several playstyles myself.
As for the Mancubus's cannons, yeah, I'll concede this much that his cannons can be dealt with a number of ways. But again belies a question. If it takes just 10 heavy cannon ammo or one shotgun blast to do what all those other combos can with twice the time and resources, why would I do the latter with ammunition in account? You insist that I'm playing the game wrong with this in mind, but literally every FPS ingrains in you your awareness for ammo conservation, while Doom Eternal wants you to waste it with gleeful abandon, yet simultaneously doesn't even indulge in the idea of doing so by limiting your ammunition in the first place. It can't have it both ways. And that's about the most I want to cover of that video, as this video of mine is already going to be long as it is with the multitude of videos and people I'm covering, and the rest of the video has him going over what worked in the old God of War games to God of War 2018, which is a series I'm unfamiliar with. The only thing I do want to point out is that he mentions that in the old God of War games that there was this emphasis on resource management and how it emphasizes saving your mana bar for the next encounter. As I've stated before, first-person shooters also encourage you to save your ammo, which is why I find it dumbfounding that Under the Mayo would insist that Doom Eternal would want you to save your ammo for quick, flashy combos when clearly FPS games never had that philosophy flipped on its head. And this actively contradicts him pointing out that the old God of War games tried to restrain your desire to go balls out. And for one more clarification before we get into the next video, I don't damn the concept of Doom Eternal wanting you to go about swapping to your weapons in and of itself. Its implementation thereof is incredibly clunky, and with that dreaded lack of ammo in mind, comes off as two clashing philosophies butting heads. Similarly to Doom 3, the problem with that game isn't that it wanted to implement more horror elements, but that its horror elements revolved around enemies jump scaring you from random supply closets that only existed for the purpose to jump out like a jack-in-the-box. It utilized jumping between the flashlight and your gun effectively and balancing your ability to see between your ability to defend yourself, and mostly saved itself the problem that most horror shooters have and how your immediate helplessness comes at odds with having a shotgun in hand. But seeing as he mentioned that enemies give you creative ways to deal with them, let's see how he defends one of the most indefensible enemies in the game, the Marauder.
I love the Marauder. Doom Eternal is a better game with his inclusion.
Wow, not even 5 seconds and we already got a hot take, but let's hear the witch out before we hang her.
He's fast, he hits hard, and he doesn't follow the rules of the rest of the enemies in the game, and that's exactly why I love him.
Okay, that's a strange way to praise him, because I think the fact that he doesn't fall by the rules of the other enemies is the biggest weak point about him, and sufficiently plants a nail in the coffin over Doom Eternal's gameplay design process. Everything about it falls apart when it comes to him, because whatever preconceptions you have about how this game expects you to play fall apart the moment he makes his presence known.
That last point seems to be the issue that people have with him. But half of what you're hearing is completely false, and the other half is easily resolved by intelligent play and learning the game.
Motherfucker, you just stated that he doesn't play by the rules, which means the rules that the game laid out for you. So how would learning the game somehow make him easier? Also, if it's intelligent play is playing red light, green light, then man, you give Doom Eternal too much credit.
Let's listen to the criticism about this character from several channels that I regularly view and who produce a lot of content that I enjoy. And we're going to dissect and debunk left and right. So, who is the Marauder? Gentlemen?
They are the only objectively terrible thing in the entire Doom franchise at this point. The Marauders have a shotgun that they use if you get too close. They have a ranged attack that they use if you get too far away. They have a melee swing that they can bust out whenever the fuck they like. They have a massive gap closer. They run faster than A-Train. They summon a flaming dog that chases you if you don't engage them enough. Oh, and they are essentially invulnerable to most attacks because they can bring up their shield in a split second that will block hit scan attacks.
First of all, the statement that his dog spawns if you don't engage him enough is a flat out lie. His dog only spawns if he's blocking fire with his shield. You can run around for days and the dog will never spawn if you don't hit his shield. The dog is your punishment for wasting your ammo, though he will occasionally spawn the dog if he blocks fire from another enemy.
Yeah, that is true, but the problem is that it brings up another problem with the Marauder. If you so much as try to engage him with any other enemy, inadvertently or otherwise, he'll block the damage at a moment's notice and punish you for it. Which means you either have to completely ignore him, or only deal with him, which is an utter betrayal of what disjointed attempt of a gameplay loop Doom Eternal was trying to encourage you to do, i.e. the aforementioned mindless weapon swap spam.
These Marauders are also insanely fast, deal a ton of damage, and have a boatload of health. All of it combines to make an encounter that just sucks.
This is a problem. The Marauder, it is an enemy type in this game that completely contradicts every single thing this game encourages you to do. Like I mentioned before, it's all about fast movement, learning the layout of the arenas, finding ways to traverse it quickly and kill enemies quickly.
The problem isn't that Marauders are hard, the problem is they're bad. They're completely antithetical to the core design philosophy that underpinned Doom's entire combat design.
Okay, so here's the point about the Marauder contradicting the flow of Doom Eternal. You just heard that the game is about fast movement, learning the layout of the arenas, fast traversal, and fast killing. So when you're fighting the Marauder, you have to quickly dodge his projectiles, react to the dog spawn and take it out quickly, understand the level so while you're guarding against him you don't get lost or cornered, and strategically navigate to vantage points and sources of health and ammo. So right there you have movement, layout, traversal, and fast killing all involved in a fight against the Marauder. Moving on.
Wow, now isn't that just about the most bad faith assessment about what the other YouTubers were criticizing when in regards to the Marauder? Because my experience of the Marauder was that I would stand, yes, literally stand and wait for him to do a melee attack, do the aforementioned super shotgun ballista combo that is simultaneously praising Doom Eternal but loathed in Doom 2016, because the consistency sure sucks when you want to defend your sacred cow, or when I didn't want to deal with him in the moment, run away because trying to deal with him with the others would just have a spirit dog that would punish me for doing the very thing this game wants me to do, on top of betraying the idea of getting into the fight rather than actively avoid it. So you tell me, UTM, do you think those are fundamental to Doom Eternal's design, or sort of completely collapse whatever shoddy foundation this game's core design already belies upon?
You cannot shoot this guy, no matter how far away he is, if he's running, because if he's running, he'll just dodge the bullets instantly.
The horrible part is that they also have a completely invulnerable red shield that they can pull out in a split second whenever they want, which effectively makes you waste what little ammo you have left.
It's not whenever they want. Yes, you'll learn quickly that if you shoot at him normally, he'll block you. But saying he pulls it out whenever he wants is trying to give the impression that the enemy is impossible to manage, which is crap.
Well, you tell me, Gomer, because apparently switching to 2 weapon modes in a hectic combat scenario is apparently too difficult, but having what amounts to a Dark Souls enemy in a sea of Doom enemies is somehow manageable.
He very obviously blocks attacks that come from the front. He does not block everything.
Well, considering he can literally block a BFG blast even when shot above him, is essentially everything a bit better clarification for you?
You can shoot rockets to his side and detonate them behind him. Same with grenades. You can sticky bomb his feet. So don't complain about wasting ammo when that's your fault, not his.
Oh, so now you want to say that wasting ammo isn't ideal to deal with him, huh? That sounds like a bit of a contradiction with what Doom Eternal wanted you to do, almost like the very thing these YouTubers are complaining about in regards to him?
Some guns clearly don't work on him, so if you run out of ammo by emptying your clip into his shield, that's on you.
Ah, gotcha, but simultaneously if I find myself out of ammo because I want to use a gun on an enemy, that's also on me, except when it's also somehow great for the gameplay loop. A mic contradicting there.
You're meant to wait for this tiny opening when their eyes turn green and they're open to attack, and you can really only trigger that if you're standing at a precise distance from them.
You can't just shoot him. Bullets deflect off of him. If you're too close, he's gonna shotgun blast you. If you're too far, he's gonna throw an axe at you. You have to stand in this Goldilocks zone where his eyes blink and then he swings an axe at you. That's when you can shoot him.
This is incredibly misleading. You are not supposed to stand at a certain range. You back off from him to where he can only attack long range, then he will start running at you, and you need to be prepared to tag him out of his melee attack.
Ah, so just like a Dark Souls enemy, because you know the one thing that was missing from my FPS shooter? A fucking Dark Souls enemy. But hey, seeing as apparently Doom Eternal needed to have aspects of a platformer and brawler interspersed, why not also bloviate the experience with yet another conflicting aspect of the game too? Also, if you are doing these things in order for him to get at the range to cue your attacks, at what point is that any different from stating that that is your only opening for attack?
The best tools for this are the ballista or the super shotgun. Then he's staggered, you close the gap, and you blast him in the face again for free.
Hold on, what was that? Wait, I thought players would only use those weapons in Doom 2016, but now it's okay to use those for the Marauder? Huh. That's curious. Apparently doing one thing all the time in one game is bad, but when it came to Doom Eternal it was good? Really gets the almonds activating.
Do not try to stand in a sweet spot. It's not hard to figure out that you can stay back and bait him into running at you.
And isn't staying back in this regard standing in a sweet spot? What's the difference exactly between waiting for him to queue up the green light at melee range and staying back if he does the same thing?
Oh, and they're actually the one enemy in the game that the BFG does nothing against.
He's immune to the BFG, which is complete and utter horseshit.
He is not immune to the BFG. You can shoot it over his head, which forces him to turn around, exposing his back for an attack, if you want to play it that way.
Are you actually serious with that counter? If he can literally block the BFG's attack with his shield like any other, what do you think that means? Like, does he think when they were saying that he's immune to the BFG that he doesn't even react to it? Because I understood it to mean that unlike when the BFG is used and can nuke an entire room, the Marauder just brushes it off like nothing, which also betrays the function of the BFG too.
But the problem I found with this guy is that he doesn't always follow his own rules. The game says that the Marauder only uses his shotgun if you're at close range, and he'll throw his axe if you're far away, but that difference between what the game determines as shotgun range or axe throwing range isn't really all that clear. It's just a bit of an unbalanced stain on a really solid enemy lineup otherwise.
The ideal distance that you're meant to be from them just feels so inconsistent. No other enemy in this game feels remotely janky, but the Marauders just feel like the contextual moveset is not consistent or reliable.
I don't know how much clearer it could get. The Marauder is like fighting a demonic version of yourself. He moves around with your dash speed, he has your super shotgun, so what's your shotgun range? Well, that's basically his too. Stay out of it.
Ah yes, because apparently Under the Mayo can just pinpoint the exact measurement of the shotgun range with just a flick of his eye, in a hectic combat environment no less, and never ever misjudges the timing or distance. I guess if you think about it, the Marauder isn't in balance as long as you're perfect at playing the game like Under the Mayo apparently is.
I know some contrarian edgelords in the comment section will be like, well, you just need to do this and that and the other thing and blah blah, get good scrub. Well, sure, whatever. But for the average player tackling this game, especially on ultra violence difficulty, these Marauders can just totally kill your pacing, your enjoyment, and your overall experience.
This is the most bizarre argument of the bunch. Let's hear that again.
But for the average player tackling this game, especially on ultra violence difficulty, these Marauders can just totally kill your pacing, your enjoyment, and your overall experience.
Why on earth would an average player be playing on ultra violence and then complain about difficulty? The game has a menu that allows you to lower the difficulty at any time.
Well, according to APB, that's the only ideal way to play the game, because apparently other difficulty options are just for the noobs, which begs the question of Doom Eternal's balance falling apart on the easier difficulties as a result.
And ultraviolence is for experienced players who want a tough challenge, so this is just so weird to me. He's also completely dismissing all of the tactics for dealing with the fight, and insulting anyone who even bothers to suggest approaching the fight differently. Who does that?
Again, you and ABP both bemoan people for playing the game their way, both in this vid, the vid I just covered, and soon to be a British Potatoes vid on EFAP's stream about the game. So, look in the fucking mirror, doofus.
Look at how he's playing against the Marauder too. He's staying right in his face, not trying to bait out his run, blowing himself up with the rocket launcher. He barely ever dashes, no meat hook to move around, and we're supposed to take his complaint seriously?
Yeah, I have no disagreement here, but whether or not how he deals with him is wrong, does that somehow deter what points he was trying to make about him? Or what of the other YouTubers who are playing at a similar level to you who don't share your feelings on him?
I mean, I get it. On my first playthrough, I handled the Marauders poorly too. They made me rethink my battle plan, and they made me a better player as a result. It wasn't till my second playthrough that I really started to get it, but I didn't go out into the streets screaming about how unfair it all is.
Ah, so that's how you're going to characterize the criticism of the Marauder. Complaining out in the street, like as though these people have no legitimacy to what they're complaining about. God, you just love it when the pure condescension mixed with the pride of getting the Marauder means that this entire video is just you wanting to act holier than thou to the critics and not actually addressing the criticism. But seeing as treating the Marauder like a Dark Souls enemy is intelligent gameplay, I guess you really do need a high IQ to understand him, don't you? And let me clarify, it also took me 2 tries to get him, but what I got out of him the second time was all I ever could get out of him whenever I would deal with him. A painful sore on this sore-infested pustule of a game that had to be dealt with exactly the same way every time, either with complete attentiveness or sheer passive aggression in regards to the other enemies present.
The Marauders completely arrest this flow. They demand your attention in a way that no other enemy does. The chess game is essentially put on hold until you deal with this asshole.
I do not see how this is a negative. Quote, they demand your attention in a way that no other enemy does. Have these people played Doom 2 or Final Doom? Did they ever encounter the Archvile in those games? In the original games, the style was very run and gun, circle strafing and blasting your enemies. You could fight everyone like this pretty much, except the Archvile. If he made eye contact with you from anywhere on the screen, he started burning you and you would explode and die in 2 seconds. You had to run and hide to escape his attack. You had to play the game very differently to take him down. You could say he ruined the fun, but I never saw it that way. Sure, he was frustrating when he appeared. He caused legendary amounts of rage when the game came out, and you either had to avoid him and take everyone else out, risking he sneaks up on you, or you took him on right away to eliminate the threat. Sounds a lot like the Marauder.
You know, if UTM thought for 1 second the specific difference between the Archvile and the Marauder, that he realizes comparison is extremely weak, especially when both enemies are present. But he just goes on yet another whataboutism to deflect from the criticism. Sure, the Archvile can be quite oppressive, but you can still kill him with any combo of weapon, no matter how uncohesive the combos may be. Not so much with the Marauder. And I know his next point is going to be that you have to prioritize higher threat enemies with lower threat ones, which is yet another problem with the Marauder, as he swings either on the very top of that priority or lowest until all other threats are dealt with. But with the Archvile, unless a Marauder is present, will always be top priority.
But let me ask all of you old Doom fans, didn't you get excited when you saw the return of the Archvile? And if you did, why? Wasn't it because he's a huge bastard that used to cause you to rage due to his cheapness? And you were thrilled to see him back because you wanted to feel that rage again because it makes you so much more excited when you finally take him down. That's why the Marauder is great.
So are we just going to ignore that it could just be nostalgia bait rearing in? I mean, just because an enemy gives you a certain emotional reaction doesn't lend it credence to it being good game design, because I imagine the Archvile in a more 3D setting works much better than he did in a 2D sprite environment. Also, all of this appeal to nostalgia hinges on the idea that the Marauder will become as notoriously antiquated as the Archvile was in future installments, which just kicks the problem down the road to now, doesn't it?
You know, I hope he gets nerfed at least. You know, that would be great.
You could delete these enemies from the game and Doom Eternal immediately becomes a better video game.
Do not call for nerfs in the first week of a game. Take this from someone who plays fighting games.
Okay, but the comparison doesn't really work because you're talking about a single player experience compared to a multiplayer one where you're playing with other players. The former wouldn't really hamper the experience, whereas a multiplayer could for those who really liked playing a certain build or character. Also, yet another game I've no experience in, so carry on.
Here's some footage of me fighting Marauders and having a great time doing it.
Huh, that's interesting because me playing that way, exactly that way, is why I don't like him. He doesn't mold at all with the other enemies. Look at the way UTM blatantly disregards him in service of other enemies, because he knows that the Marauder doesn't work along with other enemies. Also, seeing as he pointed out, can we also just call complete bullshit on the fact that not only does enemy fire cause a dog to spawn, but does so regardless if he has the shield up? And that was about the most I can tolerate from UTM. I'd love to go into the ammo vid, but I feel I've covered it plenty of times throughout here. But before I do move my attention to the next person on my hit list, I want to fully elaborate on why Doom Eternal fails on the ammo conservation. You see, most first-person shooters emphasize conserving your ammo, especially ammo for powerful guns in preparation for powerful encounters. You want to be accurate, use your power weapons mindfully, and the like. Doom Eternal, for all its want in your awareness of your ammo, can't have this mentality in hand while also insisting that you use your weapon well like it's going out of style. It betrays this very subconscious mindset, which is why in any other FPS game when you are short of ammo, that the player will find frustration in themselves for either not aiming well, looking for ammo supplies, or for going into combat scenarios with reckless abandon. Whereas in Doom Eternal insists upon reckless abandon while denying you the satisfaction of doing so by its limited ammo supply, which is why people feel so frustrated at the game for when they run out of ammo, because all they were doing was playing the game by the rules it laid out. Even in games where ammo is severely limited, mainly horror shooters like Resident Evil or Silent Hill, take great emphasis on the idea that what ammo you have, you should only save for the most desperate of moments, and that if you waste it for every encounter, that you'll not have any for the ones that would actually matter. And with that, we turn our ire to a British potato and his coverage of EFAP's coverage on the game. Call this responseception, if you will.
So to engage exclusively aggressively with no care about enemy weak points like the cacodemons and the shotgun, right? The shotgun grenade, or knocking the tails off of the spiders, right? If you're not engaging in the weak point loops that are inherent in Doom Eternal, right, then you are not playing it at peak efficiency.
There was an awful lot of waffling, I know, Rich, coming from me, for me to get any substance of the stream he's trying to respond to, but yeah, so far I agree with Moriarty or Crymore Gaming. I want to put this footnote here before we get started. APP is extremely uncharitable to Moriarty, such that he makes him come off as a complete douchebag, when in this stream he is extremely cordial, even to Theo and Glib Facsimile, who disagree with him. It will become very prevalent throughout this vid that a British potato is irrationally angry at the idea of criticism being directed at Doom Eternal, whether he believes that criticism valid or not, and doesn't know when to cool his damn jets. Which seems like a lose-lose scenario for someone who would want to convince others of his points if all he's doing is throwing jabs and insults for no other reason but for the shock value of it. But moving on.
But yeah, I guess we can talk about pretty much anything, but I figured Doom is probably one to actually jump onto from there. Do you feel I've not seen your review of it, your full review, but I've been told you managed to make one. Do you feel it vindicates your initial video to a degree, Mr. M?
I think that most of the things that I complained about, with the exceptions of the mobility with regards to the yellow poles, I was actually fairly accurate about. I just explained it poorly.
No, that's fucking horseshit. Your video is terrible. Your points in your original video complaining about the E3 trailer were fucking horrible, even disregarding the polls. Along with that, even with your actual critique was fucking horseshit. But we'll get into all of that somewhere in this video, because of course he touches on the same points, so.
I know I was a bit guilty on jumping the gun on what people are going to say about certain games, but APB is the reigning king of jumping that gun. But seeing as he's acknowledged that he's trying to get around the fluff, I too have to skirt around his fluff to find the cogency of his rebuttals before I can make any assessment on the subject at hand.
What do you think about, like, do you think it was better or worse than 2016?
I think they're not the same game at all, and it's hard to say whether it's better or worse. I don't think they kept the philosophy of Doom.
No, they did. They kept the philosophy of Doom. They kept everything that makes a Doom game. They just amped it up. They actually do play the same. You can play 2016 just like Eternal, and you can play Eternal just like 2016. Look at my footage. 2016. I actually jumped on this game after fucking 2 years and played it exactly like Eternal, and even if, actually, I would say that it's even more broken, and 2016 doesn't follow the philosophy of Doom, because the game is just utterly fucking broken, and just actually kind of shit, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Well, now that's a juicy take if I ever heard one, especially one to forsake any wrongdoing that Doom Eternal might have done design-wise. Because the worst things I could say about Doom 2016 is that it gets fairly easy near the mid to end game of the campaign, and the colors of that game are a bit muted in retrospect to Doom Eternal or even Doom 3 of that matter. Then again, I played both Doom 2016 and Eternal on Hurt Me Plenty, and found that through playing Doom Eternal that you can't play it the same as Doom 2016 because of all the things I mentioned prior on top of what else APP will say here that will contradict that sentiment. But what's most annoying about this response is that I've noticed that in order for Doom Eternal fans to deflect criticism away from it, that they have to treat Doom 2016 as though not only inferior to it, but objectively bad to any other Doom game title. They can't even argue in defense of Eternal on its own merits. They have to punch down some other game in order to prop itself up. Now, I don't know if you've heard this kind of tactic before, but it's the same kind of tactic to excuse stupid shit in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, the Mando show, and so on. They'll claim that not only was the OT littered with mistakes, as though that forgives them having mistakes in their own show, but the OT was actually always shit. It's a very odd way to defend something you like by saying, well, it was always bad.
With Eternal, I believe that it is personally worse than 2016 for me, but I think that anybody who's going in and trying to buy Doom and they're expecting Doom 2016 will be disappointed, because it is not 2016 in the slightest.
So why would it matter if it isn't like 2016? You could do the same shit and play the same way, but they are still different. And what exactly is wrong with that? Let's think about that for a moment. You're telling me right now that you wanted Doom 2016 2. Imagine if we did get Doom 2016 2. We would have a situation of Modern Warfare 2 between Modern Warfare 3, where people will complain as basically the exact same game, with no big differences, really. That's what you want. You don't want them to innovate. And it's kind of fucking insulting for you to say this shit and think, oh yeah, I just want Doom 2016 too. Why should they make the same game again if they already know that if they do that, they will get fucking backlash? That's so fucking stupid. You are shit at making fucking criticisms of games. Holy fuck.
Exactly what I mean about how unbelievably uncharitable APB can be at times. Mahler literally asked Crimer what his quick thoughts were about the game before getting into the specific criticism about it, and before Crimer can even get his thoughts out, British Potato is already denouncing his value as a critic. More importantly, what Crimer was getting at was not that he just wanted a Doom 2016 2, but that the specific changes they made to Doom Eternal are so drastic that it's uncharacteristic of anything familiar to Doom 2016. I'm absolutely certain he'd be quite disappointed if Doom Eternal was little more than a few tweaks here and there, but it's not innovative to completely destroy the foundation in favor of this Jenga block reconstruction that Doom Eternal rests upon.
They've completely changed the philosophy from a combat forward philosophy to a defense primary philosophy. And I don't think...
No, it's still very offensive. You can still go straight into a fucking big horde of enemies and just start fucking slaughtering. Just because your gameplay is fucking horseshit, as you can see here, he doesn't know how to play the game, like, at all, and I guess you would throw, oh, well, that's restricting me. But we'll get into that. Your gameplay is shit. It's clear that you played it defensively because you chose to play it like that. And you were just fucking awful at the game. You were fucking dog shit, actually.
But wait, I thought, at least according to UTM, that this game encourages creativity, but now you're saying that there is a specific wrong or right way to play the game? How interesting. Also interesting how that also contradicts UTM's weak counter to how Doom Eternal does force you into a certain mindset by stating, well, all games do that, so shut up. Also, let's look at your fucking gameplay since you're so high on yourself. A miss on that snipe there, ran right into a grenade you planted, drastic misfires on that chain gun, and yet you prevailed because this game only works if you fling shit at the wall. Your gameplay is no different from any other veteran of this game who do the same shit with no mindfulness to what they're even using half the time. I suppose that's another criticism about Doom Eternal you can levy that UTM insists is present. For all its talk about mindful gameplay, it doesn't reward you for it. More often than not punishes you for it and rewards the sloppy, silly, and reckless.
Look how I play. Do you see me playing defensively? No, I'm going into giant fucking groups of enemies, using my abilities all at once to do these sick fucking combos to keep me alive, to give me resources. That's what the game wants you to do. It wants you to do a fucking earn your shit. And that's what you fucking do. It's like Devil May Cry 5. And it's very inspired from that game. You do weapon combos. You do all these cool tricks to get your resources back. Just because you don't fucking understand it doesn't mean it's defensive. You just fucking suck ass at it. That's your problem.
You know, if you're so goddamn confident that someone is playing the game wrong, maybe explain to them how instead of just going for, you suck ass because I say you suck ass approach to it. Because whenever someone talks shit about my poor performance at work, the one thing that always convinced me that I was doing something wrong was just not explaining how and just saying I suck. But anyway, Devil May Cry 5, yet another example of a fighting game that shouldn't be compared to Doom Eternal by the by, gets lumped in here as a point of praise whenever I've ever seen gameplay of any of the Devil May Cry games, it's often a smear of things happening and getting results from it rather than any tangible cause and effect from whatever combos you're doing. But I'm yet again not going to talk about a game I haven't played, so maybe it is cohesive according to you, but even so, a first-person shooter shouldn't feel like a brawler, if that sounds reductive.
I still haven't played it yet, but I'm assuming the only other person here who has is Rags, actually.
I've played it.
I've played it.
Any,
It's all right. It's all right.
The platforming's terrible.
Platforming's pretty. I'd say it's mediocre to the point of being pointless.
Oh, so like 2016? In fact, if you're going to complain about the platforming, how come you're not going to complain about it in 2016? Because let me fucking tell you, the platforming in 2016 is fucking horseshit. There are moments where I was platforming in this fucking game, and I would actually touch the fucking railing, but Doom Guy would just not climb over, and I would just fall and die. And I would have to restart a fucking checkpoint. That is horseshit. I don't understand why people defend 2016 for their fucking lives, and say that Eternal's fucking platforming is awful, but no one brings up how awful 2016 is.
Well, APB, let me fix that right for you, because as you can see from the title of the stream, they are talking about Doom Eternal. But even if we're going to agree with your assessment on this is a complete whataboutism. If Doom 2016 has bad platforming, that doesn't excuse Doom Eternal for having it either. It's kind of ironic too how you act like them not acknowledging this about Doom 2016 means they're fervently defending it, while you are fervently defending Doom Eternal by pulling this whataboutism out your ass. I know you clarify that you only bring this up because you want to call out their consistency on criticisms regarding the games, but even so, if Doom Eternal has bad platforming, which it does, you still have to call it out even if they didn't necessarily for Doom 2016.
That was really good platforming, actually, because it does serve a purpose. Just because you didn't fucking see it, which I don't blame you for not, because you only have 11 fucking hours in the goddamn game. Maybe if you paid more fucking attention of what the game was actually trying to teach you through the maps and the level design, you wouldn't be such a fucking moron and not noticing this.
You bring this up a lot about how Rags has only played 11 hours of Doom Eternal, which coincidentally enough was roughly the same amount of time it took for me to beat its campaign, as though he can't actually criticize it unless he's played an arbitrary length of the game to your satisfaction. I get you're trying to invoke the stigma of game dev journals who don't even complete the game yet opine on it like as if they had, but you've no proof that Rags didn't beat it, nor that him only beating it once means he is deficient in expressing his issues with the game thusly. Also, really loving the hyperbole of your insults. I know you think it makes you look justifiably angry, but it just makes you come off as maniacal.
Shit. So let me explain why the platforming is so good in Doom Eternal. It teaches you the movement better in the game. Notice how every single platforming section makes you time your jumps. And that's what the platforming does. Notice that it's like jump, jump, dash, dash. It's not jump, jump, dash, dash. That's why people fucking fail. Once you learn that it's very just light jumps and dash, dash, that would save you in a lot of arenas. Along with the monkey bars, you could do so many cool things with them and learn the mobility of the arenas better and maneuver around and get around so much better, especially if you ballista boost doing all these cool shit. It helps a lot. The platforming is really good in the game because it complements the gameplay and the combat when you're in these hectic arenas, and you just have to keep in your mind, keep fucking moving, use the platforming as an advantage, use the gravity lifts, use the monkey bars. They're there to help you in these arenas. They're not fucking pointless at all. You just don't fucking get it or understand it at all.
Yet another mistake or miscommunication as a result of Rags and Crymore that APB has run with is he has attributed their dislike of the platforming in regards to any time you use it in combat and not between the combat arenas. Because if I had a nickel for every time defenders of this game confuse that criticism about it, it'd be enough for me to get a whole nother copy of this game. Now obviously I don't know if that is a criticism Rags and Crymore levy at it, but seeing as APB complained about the platforming of Doom 2016, while showing footage of the platforming between the combat arenas and comparing it to the platforming in them in Doom Eternal, means that he knows full well how disingenuous he's being in assuming that they're only talking about the platforming in the combat sections.
Yes.
It feels very much like it's just filler to stretch time. It's very simple and easy, and it's pointless.
Before I even jump down on APP's throat, look at what Rags just said. Why in the hell would Rags describe the platforming in the combat as filler to stretch time, unless he's talking about the platforming between the combat arenas. Why would you, British Potato, be so confused the difference? Unless, of course, you are so stuck in your confirmation bias that you need his criticism to be this way?
And don't forget, if you're going to use this criticism, I hope you would say it to 2016 too, 2016 TOO, because the platforming in there is honestly fucking horseshit and pointless, along with being bloat, like you said. So, better keep your consistent standards that you like to gloat about.
Are you actually fucking with me here? You literally compared a different aspect of platforming between two games to judge one as being superior to the other. And again, it's another whataboutism, but even worse than that, by stating that you better keep that standard with Doom 2016, that you are tacitly stating you can't criticize Doom Eternal unless you also agree with your assessment of the prior game? That's a fucking noose to hang someone on.
Yes.
I would rather just be walking through hallways, taking in scenery, and being given world building as I do.
Okay, you do get scenery. Every single mission in the main campaign is completely different from one another, except for the 2 hell missions and a few here and there. But you go through, let's say, Exaltia for the first time. You just look around, you see this fucking giant titan stabbing a fucking demon in the mouth with a giant spear, and you're like, oh shit, that's pretty fucking cool. That's your world building right there, Rags. I don't understand why you're complaining about world building when there's more in this game than there was ever in 2016. What kind of world building was in 2016? Dirt. Fucking gray hallways. Oh my, that's such good world building. Gray fucking hallways. I'm so glad. But that's still bloat. You were complaining about bloat, but here you are saying, oh, but you know, here, put some fucking gray hallways in there. That's good bloat, I guess. Why don't you just walk through this gray fucking hallway that looks like shit? Instead of seeing this giant mech suit stabbing a demon, wondering what the fuck happened here. And then later, of course, you do find out why and all this interesting shit. But there is world building in this game, and you're doing a horrible disservice saying this shit, because clearly you didn't pay attention. I guess you put on fucking swimming goggles and just looked in a very small lens, not looking around like, oh, I need to avoid all the world building, because I need this to justify my shitty narrative.
I'll agree, omitting his childish insults yet again, that Rags wasn't exactly clear what he meant when he said this, but I'll take a crack at it. The problem with the scenery presented in Doom Eternal is that while it catches your eye, it's not that substantive beyond it. The fact that you jump so whimsically between Earth, Hell, Exaltia, Mars, and so on means there's no coherence between any of these locales between them. Whereas with the exception of Mars and Hell with 2016, you're getting quite familiarized with the facility and its inner workings, and how they came across the idea of using Hell's energy to fuel their own machines. Many a time when you got popped into these locales in Doom Eternal, it feels like a theme park ride rather than a world built without the Doom Guy in mind. Especially prevalent with some of the platforming that is designed only for Doom Guy to traverse it. Whereas 2016, as much as you love it, at least had some semblance of believability to it. Also, unlike Doom Eternal, all of the weapon and item pickups are dynamically found in the world, rather than being these cartoonishly floaty and spinning pickups like as though the developers weren't confident in your own ability to find them. And if that was the philosophy they went for, fine, but you can't also tell me that its world building and lore can be ignored, which is something you'll bring up as a defense for Doom Eternal.
Yeah, so that's exactly how I feel as well. The game is essentially a series of battle arenas that are then strung together by these platforming sections. Most of the space on the map is platforming, and then you have these almost multiplayer arena-esque spots where you'll fight, waves of monsters.
Even in the smallest corners of YouTube does Jim Sterling's own tactics bleed through to the likes of APB. I don't know, man. You tell me, seeing as this video is well over an hour long, longer than their actual discussion of the game even.
And I know that what they did is they looked at the criticisms of Doom 2016 and they said, oh, well, there's too many hallways. You're going from arena, hallway, so they added in the platforming.
No shit.
It was always my concern that if you had these monkey bars and you had the wall climbing, which I still think the wall climbing's terrible. It's not enjoyable.
It doesn't feel... It almost feels like a different team made the wall climbing. It's very rigid and The way that you control on it is odd.
The way you control on it? How is it odd? All you do is just climb onto the fucking wall, press double jump, and you're done. How is that hard? How is that rigid? I don't understand your point here. Oh, it's so rigid. No, it's not. Just like the game and the combat, there's multiple ways to go around everything, even platforming sections. You can meat hook around a lot of the platforming sections if you're creative enough. This game, you have to look outside the box to understand what it wants you to do, which I appreciate the developers actually making this game for very smart people. The platforming in this game allows you to get real fucking creative with the movement. So this wall climbing thing, you just jump the wall. And even with that, you get momentum to actually get a little bit more speed and actually probably do some cool shit with the platforming. So it was the same team, believe it or not, looking into id Software and how they operate. Everyone works on something together type of situation.
Well, doesn't that just sharpen your ego? To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to play Doom Eternal. Kind of memery in that statement, but you're a living legend of that statement. Also, Rags doesn't literally believe that the wall climbing mechanic was made by a different dev team, just that it feels as though it was, because most of the time you don't incorporate it into the fighting, as it limits your field of view, locks your movement, and is tightly locked to the platform between the combat sections.
There's another strange thing too with the controls for it. It's that when you dash into a wall, you automatically grab it. However, if you're not dashing into a grabbable wall, you have to hit the button to grab it. So if you're dashing into a wall, before you learn that it automatically grabs it forward, you hit the grab wall button because that's intuitive, and that means you let go of the wall.
Yes.
So that's an odd gameplay decision instead of keeping it consistent with itself.
You know, I guess those 11 hours are going to start biting you in the ass right now. Because this is fucking horseshit. He's either lying, he didn't research, or he's just blowing things out of his ass. I'm going to take all three of them. Because that's not fucking true. The button that you press to latch onto the wall is usually the button that you use to interact with shit. To get off the wall, you don't press the interaction button, you press the spacebar. I even went into a fucking nearest wall in one of the missions, and I kept pressing the interaction button on that fucking wall. I stayed there. The second I came off was when I pressed the spacebar. And even when I pressed the dash, I latch on, I fucking pressed the interact key, nothing happened. So, maybe, if you want to start questioning odd gameplay mechanics, which I would say that would be weird, maybe you want to double check your facts and make sure you're actually fucking right, so you don't look like a massive fucking dumbass.
Okay. Rags is half right on this, and to be fair, I forgive him for sort of misremembering this strange feature, because I would distinctly know when I attempted playing this game again on PC that when you dash into a wall, it glues you to it, but when you're not, you have to press a button, which has caused many an accidental slip-up on my part. I don't think Rags is saying that because you instinctively press a button while you're on a wall that you'll slip off, but that because in some instances you don't have to press it, and other times you do, you psych yourself out from doing it. Also, you say that if this was in the game, it would be weird, but honestly, I'd have trouble believing you'd concede one problem with Doom Eternal with the way you're responding to this.
Yeah. But I think it was really poorly done. I think I'd have less of a problem with the platforming if it was more interesting and well done, but it was just dull filler.
Super agree with you.
Oh yeah, of course. Crymore is just gonna hop on the rag stick and just believe anything he fucking says without actually fact-checking himself, just so that's why he has someone that's, yes, finally, I'm right on something for once in my fucking pathetic life. And there he is right there. That's someone that's just bandwagging on the, oh yeah, the game's shit, ha ha ha, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, but I agree. Fucking moron, man.
And who are you if not a dick writer for this game and all the others who dick write it the same way? Like the game as you want, but you're one to tell others how they're flag series on an argument where you're basically a fireman for defending this game.
So yeah, the platforming wasn't great for me. I still think the game is perfectly playable. I just think that it is a flawed game.
I don't know if APB is surprised that Moriarty thinks the game is alright in spite of its faults, or that he can't believe that his sacred cow of his is flawed in any way, but let's hear it.
Okay, well every game is flawed and playable, so that's a weird thing to say. The only game that I could think of that's unplayable is fucking buggy piles of shit, like Anthem or something.
I love how him saying every game is flawed comes at a cross between him saying that Doom 2016 is a shit game compared to Doom Eternal. It's almost like he's just dismissing the extent of flaws that can make a game enjoyable beyond being insufferable.
I guess. And every game is flawed. I'm not going to deny Doom Eternal does have flaws, but everything you guys say in this video aren't the flaws of the actual game. They're just shitty points that aren't developed or looked into or don't understand game design worth a fuck. Which we'll get into, trust me.
Well, don't you worry, APB. I got however long between the start of this video and now going to exactly the minutiae of problems littered throughout Doom Eternal's design philosophy. And it's a lot more scripted than just off the cuff like this stream is, which if you realize that it was a stream of consciousness, that it might make you reconsider how harshly you're responding to it, but oh well. I mean, it would be a bit poetically ironic if the way you are responding to this stream is also a stream of consciousness, like what with the moans of you going on a tangent or just throwing random insults around, and that someone like I or anyone would find that a bit hypocritical.
Yeah, and I like how, well, the way they did it kind of annoys people in the sense that they give you a lot less ammo for all of your weapons, but they kind of really force you to use all of the tools necessary to get the job done in these arenas, especially if you're playing on Ultra Violence and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I saw what they were going for. I was a little annoyed that the shotgun got barely used because it ran out like all the goddamn time, especially when you get the rotator mod that allows you to fire it faster.
I'm going to be honest with you. I can see where you're coming from. But again, it's one of those things that you didn't play the game enough to really understand what the mod is used for or how to use it. And I don't understand how you ran out of ammo with the shotgun so fast, honestly. I mean, I never run out of ammo with the shotgun, especially if I use the rotator mod and shit. And I'm playing the core mechanic of the game. But so far he's right.
Not much to glom on here other than that it's literally just a matter of, well, my anecdotal experience trumps yours.
But that's Doom Eternal is the dominant strategy and doing it over and over again.
Oh boy. This is when the bullshit starts. Fuck. I wish I had a beer.
Like at the end, like at the very beginning, they introduced the first Kako demon, and they're like, shoot a grenade into its mouth to get it, stunned for a glory kill, which is so insanely effective that you'd essentially be stupid for doing anything else.
Look, here's the thing. Fine. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
I wonder how well that type of argument would hold up in any other video game. Because I can tell you right fucking now, the way that argument sounds to me is something that I could probably flip with no context. You would probably think I'm wrong too, like you are right now. So let me do that. Rags, you like the game Mordhau, don't you? I do too. It's a very neat game. But if you're not using the maul, you're essentially stupid for doing any other strategy. Literally stupid. You're just a fucking moron. You should be using the maul 100% of the time, because it's a 2-hit weapon if you have heavy armor, and a 1-hit weapon if you have light armor. And someone that doesn't know how to play the game worth a shit could go on a fucking killing spree with the fucking thing. I would say that kind of breaks the combat, wouldn't you? Let's use Doom 2016. I guess you're essentially stupid if you're not using siege mode, double barrel shotgun, the whole fucking game. You're essentially stupid if you don't do that because you're doing the dominant strategy over and over again. You see what the problem is with your shitty criticism here?
Other than the you'd be stupid for doing anything else, I don't know how that is in any way comparable to the examples you presented. Even in the Mordhau example, the maul is extremely slow and situational in use, even if it's great for beginners, like for the 1 hour I tried playing it, especially when we are talking about a multiplayer experience. Furthermore, with the limited ammo in mind, I know you're going to bring this up in the next instance, but bear with me. Of what use is it to use any other strategy if the more ammo efficient, ease of use method is presented to you? More importantly, why would Doom Eternal have a tutorial presenting you that very ease of which to do so, unless they're suggesting that that is the most practical way to deal with it? I mean, if we're going to be using video game examples, it'd be like me saying that the AR2 Pulse Blast is the most efficient way to kill a hunter in Half-Life 2, and you saying, well, you can kill it with a car or using a lot more ammo than you'd like to, completely neglecting the potential ease of which one is favored of doing the former over the risk to your own self by doing the latter. And Half-Life 2 doesn't even have the aforementioned lack of ammo issue that Doom Eternal has that would incentivize using the easiest, most practical tool in your kit.
And I see people always defending this, even with this little video I made earlier. People were defending this point because it takes less ammo to waste a shotgun shell than shoot a ballista. Shooting it with a rocket ballista is actually faster and more efficient because, one, you don't have to wait for the shitty fucking grenade swallow animation, which is about 1.5 seconds, which, believe it or not, that can fucking kill you if you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And on top of that, you have to be very accurate to get that mouth shot. If you don't get that mouth shot, that might fuck you over even harder. And let's say you have about 6 or 7 cacodemons in front of your ass. Do you really expect to grenade every single one of those cacodemons and kill them in the exact same way and come out with the same results? There's a good you can do it. Oh yeah, you can definitely do it. It's not going to be fucking easy. It wouldn't be as easy as just pulling out the destroyer blade, charge it all the way up, slice them. One hit. That's it. Like 4 of them are gone. Or how about just a simple rocket ballista combo, then meat hook right up to it and glory kill, you get armor and health. That easy. Then you're still in the air, then you do another rocket ballista, do the same thing to another cacodemon. Switch it up if you want.
I brought this up before in a comment a while back, but in what scenario would anyone find themselves having to fight that many cacodemons simultaneously? Moreover, even if that does happen, that just sounds like an extremely hyperbolic scenario to make it seem as though the former combo is somehow worse, when in the time that I did play it, only once had I had to use the destroyer blade because using it actually was more ammo efficient than pogoing shotgun grenades between.
There's a whole vast majority of different ways to take out these enemies, and consuming your ammo because a ballista shot's more valuable, which you don't really explain why. It's not valuable at all, actually. I sometimes just fucking shoot my ballista at fodder because why the fuck not? Because at the end of the day, I can get all the ammo I need with just one button away, and I can work with the ammo. And because the game is telling me, hey, try these weapon combos, swap between them. What's wrong with that? What exactly is wrong with the game teaching you these specific things and making you learn from them? And I guess this could be a point of him saying the game's restrictive. Just because you played 11 hours of the game doesn't make you a fucking professional to understand the actual mechanics and how the game is supposed to function.
And who the fuck is saying that Rags is? When did Rags claim that he was an expert beyond just saying that he played and finished the campaign at least once? I mean, that's an awful strange argument to make. I guess if I shit in your cereal bowl, you can't criticize the awfulness of the meal since you've only had one bite of it, right? Gotta eat my entire log of a turd to get the full experience of what that feces offers you. Poop jokes aside, no, it very much is a valid point to make. Because regardless if you are aware that the chainsaw can give you ammo, doesn't take away from the fact that people are still going to be mindful of using their ammo whenever and wherever. So with being mindful comes with it using tactics that would lessen the loss of ammo, right?
I understand this game played a lot different than other FPS games. People played this game like a modern FPS game. Some people played it as a classic FPS game. That's the problem. It's not a classic or a modern FPS game. This game is honestly revolutionary for what it accomplished here. It took what made Far Cry 5 games so interesting with all these unique abilities and combos that you could put together and force onto the enemy and get resources back. That's what the game is. It's a first-person Devil May Cry game. It's just that people don't fucking understand it. And because of that, people complained about it because they played it in a very specific way that they think how FPS games play. If you widen your perspective and look at the full box and you see how it's supposed to be played, you'll have a lot of creative freedom there.
Yes, so revolutionary in fact that only one other game tried to imitate the formula and has completely dropped from the public consciousness. I'm sorry, but being subversive for its own sake doesn't make a game suddenly revolutionary, especially if those subversive elements aren't executed well. FPS games, modern, boomer, classic, whatever have you, have always emphasized resource management and efficient use of your weapons above all else. What's ironic about you claiming that Doom Eternal tries to skirt from this aspect is that it actually doesn't. It very much tells you what weapons to use for what enemies are abound, and certainly likes to indulge the idea of there being weapon combos, but actively contradicts this by still treating the experience as though it's still a high-octane boomer shooter where wanton reckless destruction is key to winning. It's not the job of people who see Doom Eternal as it is to imagine that this is what you wanted to see and see how you feel. It's the people behind Doom Eternal that very concretely execute that idea that people can get behind, and unfortunately, it failed that.
What game isn't forcing you to use its mechanics? Risk of Rain is forcing you to kill enemies, get items, start the teleporter, charge the teleporter, next arena. That's what the game is forcing you to do to get into its fun zone, you can say. Every game has its fun zone. Fallout New Vegas. I love Fallout New Vegas, but you can say that game is restrictive. You want to know why? You have to collect resources. You have to talk to people. You have to explore to complete the game. You have to do these. They are forcing you into its mechanic.
Ah, pulling an Under the Mayo, aren't we? Well, let me reiterate what I said to him. Yes, all games have allowances and restrictions on what the player wants them to do. The job of the developer is to make sure that those restrictions and allowances doesn't come at the cost of completely taking the player out of the experience, making them see the strings behind the curtain. Resident Evil 8 was a game that by your account was great because it had a similar weapon swap spam system to Doom Eternal. Yet that game falls apart if the player doesn't specifically do what the game wants them to do, like with the conveniently disappearing enemies and crucial checkpoints, a character who is presumably immortal but has to be vulnerable for any tension in the game to matter, or boss battles being completely sidelined by arbitrary save points littered throughout. And as one more clarification, just saying, well, all games have restrictions isn't a fucking counter to why people bring up Doom Eternal's restrictive nature.
And it's so fucking stupid to hear people complain about this type of shit. This is the first game I've ever heard people complain that the game is forcing you to play by its mechanic.
Well, a British potato, you tell me. If this is the first game where people are pointing out as such, whereas they haven't for any others, do you think that's a fault on them or maybe the game? If the common factor of criticism regarding Doom Eternal shared by most is how restrictive it feels, do you not think there's some credibility to it? I mean, I know you don't, but maybe instead of assuming that everyone else is retarded for having that perspective while you plant your ivory tower higher, maybe lend an ear to it.
Anything else? It's the only way to do it. Yeah, they really do kind of limit options in this one, which is weird because, you know, it's supposed to be more about being and embodying this ripping, tearing monster that's killing everything, and instead you have one option for almost every enemy unless you're playing on a very easy difficulty.
Yeah, because otherwise, trying to kill the Caco Demon by any other means, he's a fucking sponge. So, yeah.
No, he's not a sponge at all, which is actually really funny that you say a sponge. I can guarantee, because I assume you only played the game once, what you did is that you went up to a Cacodemon with just the primary fire of the heavy cannon, and you said, okay, he's a sponge, and that's it. Didn't try anything else. I can guarantee that's what a lot of people did. And so they thought, oh, so if I just shoot a grenade, it's better and I save more ammo because I have to complain about the ammo. It's very fucking stupid, honestly. But no, if anything, it's just one of those enemies that's teaching you more about the game's mechanics, which is basically weapon combos. Rocket Ballista, the thing's in a glory kill. Done. That's it. Arbalist shot. That thing's fucking dead. Lock on rockets. Dead. All these other options and mods that you can do kills it instantly. Even micro missiles kills the fucker quick. There's a lot of different creative ways you can take these fuckers out. Just because you shot it with the primary fire of the heavy cannon doesn't make it a sponge.
I've no idea how he can assert this, as he uses footage of a different YouTuber firing a heavy cannon at a whiplash as an example. And it's funny in that the example he provides for killing the Capital Demon, that all of them use more ammo than the single shotgun blast, and just completely forgot what the point of criticizing this aspect of the game was about.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just clearly the best way to kill it. If you can expend one shotgun ammo to kill a Caco Demon, is like, yeah, you could use the what's the new Gauss cannon, the Arbalest or the
Ballista, yeah,
the Ballista. You could use a ballista, but the ammunition for that's way more valuable than a shotgun shell.
Why is the ammo more valuable for a ballista exactly? You get the ammo the same exact way you get the shotgun ammo.
Well, you tell me, Mr. Presumed Expert at this game. How is 25 pulse shots more wasteful than a single shotgun blast?
Well, why not just use it? You have 250 plasma rounds. Fucking use it. I mean, why is it valuable? I don't really understand that. You don't ever explain why it's because it does damage? It does a lot of damage, that's why it's valuable? That's kind of a dumb reason. Oh, because this gun does a lot of damage, I'm not going to use it. But if the enemy is a quotation spongy to you, why not just use it? For some reason, a lot of people thought you're supposed to fucking conserve your ammo which is basically his argument right now. You have to conserve your ammo. But like, why? It's a button away to get all of your ammo.
For some reason, you say. Not that you just stated prior that people tried to play this like they would any other shooter that emphasizes saving on ammo. Oh, before then, no one ever thought to save their ammo until Doom Eternal came around, because that's how I'm going to characterize his argument in favor of Doom Eternal. Moreover, no, the chainsaw is still not a counter, because even if, and that's a huge if, you can get your ammo back, you are still going to have it in your mind to save your ammo because the chainsaw ammo is also finite, barring the occasional refill.
Back. It is so fucking easy that a child can do it. But I have to separate myself from the arena fights to get it. Oh yeah? Well, look at 2016. You didn't get any fucking armor, and half the time you had to go looking around for health. Along with the original games where you had to backtrack the fucking game to find your health. So I don't understand what the fuck you were actually looking for in this fucking game. Just because the game has a short amount of ammo that you can carry doesn't mean you have to start conserving your ammo. Use the damn thing. That fucking chainsaw recharges every 30 seconds after using it. You have 30 seconds. If you run out of ammo in 30 seconds with all of your guns, you need to learn how to play the game better.
How do I even begin to tackle the absolute mental gymnastics of this statement? So you're telling me that you recognize that the game gives you less ammo. You expect me to take at face value that if I do run out of ammo, chainsaw or no, that's my fault. And that if I also try to conserve that ammo so that exact scenario doesn't happen, that's also my fault for how I approach playing the game? Holy shit, I haven't seen someone do these kinds of circus performances to defend Doom Eternal this hard, but here we are. Like, you are aware both of these sentiments actively contradict the other, right? And what's even funnier about this is that your next counter is going to be about how you can just find the ammo in the area when you just bemoan 2016 for having to backtrack and look around for armor and ammo. Unbelievable!
I think 2016 is definitely the superior game.
No, 2016's a pile of shit, and I will prove it right now, actually. 2016's a pile of shit. You want to know exactly why it's a pile of shit? Well, I already went over the platforming. The platforming is fucking awful. Another problem with the game is that the combat is broken. It is utter fucked. Let me explain why. So, since you guys want to say the dominant strategy over and over again, the siege mode is fucked. I can take out a Baron of Hell with 2 siege mode shots that charge in like a second. That is fucked. Along with lock-on rockets, you can actually go into arena and just slaughter everything with double barrel shotgun ballistic. Siege mode, and you're done. The game's done. Just right after that. Combat's shit. It's broken. The grenades are fucking worthless. The hologram confuses the AI, making the game even easier if you want it to be. Just break the game even more right there with the hologram. Yeah, 2016 is not the superior game. It's honestly worse, very much worse, because you could go through the game with your brain off, not thinking about jack shit. Just, oh, time for siege mode. Oh, well, everything's dead. Okay, move on. That's the fucking whole game. Honestly, that's the whole fucking game. And then on top of that, the color palette is utter shit. Why? I mean, the whole game takes place on 2 fucking places. An ARC facility and hell. Hell, granted, looks pretty cool. After the 3rd time, I just stopped giving a flying fuck. No. 2016 is not a superior game, and whoever thinks that is fucking wrong and should really evaluate 2016 and look at it in a critical lens. And they'll notice the game is fucking horseshit, and Eternal's the better game. Far better. Because it actually engages the player to go into its mechanics and learn the fucking game and understand what the game is trying to teach them.
You know, I'm not going to defend some aspects of 2016, especially just despite Doom Eternal, but I can't help but think this is just retroactive criticism of 2016 to give credence to the faults of Doom Eternal. Because sure, the game is pretty easy, again on the difficulty that I played, near the end, and the game's layout and design are pretty similar, but like with Under the Mayo, there's nothing about the game in which it forces you to use the most powerful weapon beyond the fact that you have the ammo for it. And even so, even if one finds themselves flush with ammo, are still going to ingrain themselves with saving the best for last, like I did for saving the BFG ammo for the Spire Mastermind or the Cyber Demons. I understand that you find Doom Eternal to be the better experience than 2016, but let's not try to kid ourselves in believing that Doom Eternal is somehow flawless compared to it. And more importantly, saying that Doom 2016 is worse than Doom Eternal is different from saying that Doom 2016 is objectively a shit game, FYI.
Well, 2016 just shat the bed. If you want to talk about a game that didn't go by the Doom formula, 2016 didn't go by the Doom formula either, by the way.
Oh, so we're not going to elaborate on that, because technically Doom 3 didn't go by the Doom formula, as it was more of a slower paced horror shooter than its previous titles, and people hated it for that. And to be fair, I understand why people would be so turned off at the idea, but my criticisms of Doom 3 are mainly how it implements its horror mechanics rather than it having them in the first place. The same goes for how Doom Eternal implements its mechanics, because as a Green Frog Bird Plague Doctor has said, ideas are cheap, execution is everything.
I don't think Doom Eternal is going to age well. I think as people get accustomed to it and start, I mean, we had this with Bioshock Infinite. It's probably a good example.
Well, Rags. It's been about a year since the game came out. A lot of people have put a lot of time into the game, especially me and a lot of other people out there. And I can say that you're fucking wrong on this. The game has aged like fucking wine, let me tell you. So, when the game first came out, there's things that people didn't entirely know for a fact or know how things work. And the thing about it is that over time, people have learned more and more strategies, more unique ways to take out certain enemies, and like how to take them out. A good example of this is when the game first came out, people always shot the shield with the plasma rifle on the Doom Hunter. Then I think later on, about 4 or 5 months later, someone found out that just doing 2 blood punches to the sled knocks him off instantly because he's weak to the blood punch, and then you just weapon combo his ass. Or you go straight for the sled every single time and knock him out right then and there. Things like that, people have figured out more and more about the game over time, making it more interesting and seeing these different ways that people take out certain enemies. There is someone I introduced this game to about 2 months ago. He saw me play and he thought, man, that looks really fucking awesome. I want to play that game, right? So the next day I saw him on the game and starting to play it. And I saw him for the first time playing the game and just seeing him trying to combo all these things and learning the game. Now he's gotten so much better. Here's some of his gameplay right now. The guy has gotten really good at the game. I would say almost better than me. And when I was watching him, this guy learned something that I never thought of about the game. He does a completely different strategy on how to get armor and health. He uses the flame belch on a big crowd of enemies, ice bomb, and then starts shooting a shitload of fucking stickies on the ground because he'll get health and armor from that, and giving him more resources, and maybe chainsaw an enemy off to the side and have all this shit. I never thought of using the sticky bomb to get your resources back like that. I always just used a flame belch and fucking destroyer blade and kill them all instantly and get a big parade of armor. There's other people out there that do a whole different kinds of strategies.
Well, now it's been 2 years and you don't really see people sing the praises for it, because all of those combos you say that people discovered ended up just being basically the same strategy. Throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Also curious you didn't bring up Rags' example of Bioshock Infinite, a game where people praised it, and I was a victim of praising its story, on the onset, but over time it aged poorly because the spectacle blinded people to the awful way it reincorporates Bioshock 1's mechanics with no cohesion on top of restricting the game to a 2-weapon system. Maybe you're right in that Rags jumped the gun on assuming that Doom Eternal would age, but it wasn't a matter of if it would, just a matter of when. And boy, did it.
Wrong.
In the end, I think 2016 had a lot more character than Doom Eternal, but Doom Eternal's combat was more fun. I'd say that's fair enough to say.
I enjoyed 2016's combat better.
I
You think so?
Yeah. Doom Eternal seems bloated, mechanically confused, like it wants to be too many things at once.
Bloated, mechanically confused, wants to be too many things at once. The fuck does that mean? What? Examples? Please tell me you...
Sure, I can give you some, since you yet again believe that someone talking from a stream of consciousness is just an encyclopedia. Doom Eternal wants to be a high-octane shooter, but can't because of the restricted ammo. It wants to be tactical in how you use each of your weapons, but it constantly insists upon itself to be reckless like the classics. It wants to play itself like a brawler of combos despite the fact that it's a first-person shooter, and expects you to play the game like a first-person shooter despite feeling as though like a brawler. Is that good enough for you?
Is it something that I'm invested in? Absolutely not. I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. It's something I don't care about very strongly at all.
Yeah, I just really don't have much of an investment in Doom at all. Just don't think it's that great, really.
Is that like a personal attack or something? Or...
If you don't have much of an investment in it, then why did you pre-order the game? I would be curious why. And on top of that, why did you actively make a video on Dean Takahashi's gameplay of Doom Eternal? And in that, you said, I'm very interested to see the game and kind of excited. I remembered you saying this type of thing. So clearly you did have an interest. I would be curious why your interest went away and why 11 hours of gameplay tells you, oh, I don't care anymore. I spent $60, I'm not looking back at it. And it's like, that's kind of a waste of your money, don't you think? I want to use my money more wisely on a game. Even if I don't like it, if I'm going to put $60 down, I would at least play it for like at least 60 hours.
APB uses the fact that Rags pre-ordered the deluxe edition of the game and initially said he was interested in it to get a gotcha on the fact that Rags isn't particularly invested in it, when it should be clear to anyone, including APB, that Rags had expectations about this game that were much more positive before going into it. Also, if Rags isn't having the most fun playing it, he's not just going to subject himself to playing more of it just to fulfill your arbitrary money spent, time played ratio. He got through the campaign and conceded he didn't play the multiplayer, and that's all you need to know of his experience playing it. More importantly, Dean Takahashi should be mocked for the way he plays it because, unlike Mahler or Rags, he gets paid to play these games. That's not a contradiction on Rags' loyalty to Doom Eternal just because now he doesn't care for it when he's mocking the ineptitude of someone who should know better given what field they're in.
Like, it is a flawed game. Sometimes you run out of ammunition and you have to jump around the map trying to find a little zone.
Well, if you run out of ammunition, that just means you have to be better at weapon combos and swapping your weapons and all that shit. That doesn't mean, fuck, I'm all out of ammo on all my guns, especially the shotgun. Time to go actively get out of the fight to look for fodder. If you're a good enough player, and you've played it long enough, you'll be able to implement the chainsaws along with killing all the demons at the same time.
Wow, holy shit! He almost realized why people bitch about the combat flow of the game being a tedium of weapon swap spams because of the lack of ammo. Almost, as I state, before again deriding any criticism as, well, chainsaw exists, still disregarding people's mindfulness to conserving ammo regardless of its existence.
I think I understand what you're trying to say here is that
it's inopportune.
You feel that with all of these additions, you have more choice.
Yes, you do have more choice.
Okay, I disagree. I think that you have significantly less choice in Doom Eternal than you do in Doom 2016.
Oh, really? Even though the choice that you had in Doom 2016, in your words, the peak efficiency way, which is going around with siege mode and double barrel shotgun, if you're not doing that, then I guess you're a fucking moron. No, Eternal gives you a lot of freedom with the combat. Just because you have one button that does one certain thing doesn't mean that it's restricting you. That's just an option that you can use. If you use the flame belt correctly, you can get a parade of armor and along with the ice bomb. It's a give and take situation with how these items work.
Well, I'd say that Doom Eternal takes rather than gives most of the time, and once again, it's cute you bring up that false equivalency while completely disregarding that as a result of limited ammo that you have limited options in how you use that ammo, like with the flame belch's cooldown and what have you. That's what Moriarty is trying to get at, though does screw the pooch on that in the next few statements here.
And I feel that adding in a lot of clunky options that are confusing to a player slows it down and makes it harder and less likely that that player will see success.
How the fuck is it confusing? It's very simple and straightforward to the point that it's even on the HUD. The HUD tells you all of the fucking equipment and items you have. If you don't know, shit, what do I use for flame belt? You just look down. Oh, it's R. Okay. How's that confusing and how are they clunky? And how do you get confused? Are you a fucking moron that you only know 2 buttons every game? That would make sense because you are a fucking moron, so you can't multitask in a video game, I guess.
Beyond the consistent slurry of insults, yeah, I don't get what Moriarty was trying to get at when he says it's clunky. The only way I could steelman his position is that he might be arguing that with as many options as you have, you sort of get stage fright to use any of them, and then find yourself often not using them in the flow of combat. But the idea that it's confusing to use them, yeah, don't really agree with him there.
When you have...
qualify how that clunky and confusing?
Sure. So you've got, again, like I mentioned, 9 non-movement controls. You've got 2 different grenades, which you've got to be able to change, plus shooting the grenade, so that's 2 controls there. You've got weapon mods, you've got the dash and jump, you've got flamethrower, chainsaw, melee, and the melee button, of course, does 3 different things, which is the glory kills, the blood whatever punch,
Blood
and
punch.
then
Yep.
the regular melee, which they actually could have removed and changed absolutely nothing. So you've got all of these different options, but the thing is that you still, when you're playing, right, you still need armor, so you still have to go and use your flamethrower. When you need ammo, you still have to go and use the chainsaw. You're not really increasing the options of things. They're still requirements. You still have to do them.
Well, duh. What? You're telling me the game made you use its mechanics? That's crazy. That is insane. The game is letting you use its mechanics. Because you have to flame belch an enemy, you have no options. You can only flame belch. No options whatsoever. You can't group up a big pile of enemies, flame belch and ice bomb both of them, and just shoot like a fuckload of grenades and do all these cool ways to get your resources back. No, there's no freedom whatsoever on how you can do this type of thing. It's restricting you because you're a fucking moron. Exactly. He understands the game, guys. He completely understands the game. What a dumb fucking point. I can't believe someone actually thinks, oh, because I have to flame belch, it's forcing me to flame belch. Do you remember how to get armor back in 2016? It was fucking terrible. For some reason, the glory kill only gave you 5 fucking armor if you got the rune for it, which you only get halfway through the goddamn game, mind you. And it was shit. Armor was basically worthless in 2016.
Again, no disagreement here beyond the caveat that he should really tone down on the insults, and then I'm quite sure 2016 gave you much more armor for glory kills than just 5, unless that is legitimately a bug in the game I wasn't aware of at the time.
The melee literally does nothing.
That's the point. It's because
But you have a sword on your arm.
But you
Right, that's another button too, the crucible. We completely forgot about
happy
that.
to
No, like not the
basic
crucible.
No, I
the-
meant the arm
the
blade that he
attached
uses
to
for
your
glory
arm
kills.
blade.
Yeah.
It's weird that melee doesn't do any damage, but you have
Literally
a
nothing.
sword
Yeah.
arm.
Again, before APB responds, I find it funny that now Glib makes a pretty poor response by just stating that's the point, when it being a button that literally does nothing beyond glory kill animations means it was just there by committee. What Rags and Moriarty are getting at is, if they weren't going to bother having it serve a purpose, why even give you the button to use it in the first place? And as one of the few examples of ludonarrative dissonance present throughout this game, they make a big show of the Doom guy using that blade arm in the glory kill animations, yet never thinks to use it in the regular melee animations.
Well, Rags, that's an interesting point, but the more I think about it, let's look at it in this light, right? Let's look back at 2016. So, when you look back at the game and you play Eternal enough, you understand what the developers were trying to accomplish. See, what they were trying to do is cut out the fat in 2016. The fucking shitty pistol in 2016. When did you ever fucking use it in late game? Never. Well, actually, you probably didn't even use it right after you got the shotgun. There is no point of it. So cut that out. There's no fucking point. Crouching. There's absolutely no reason to crouch in the goddamn game. Even when you're in like hectic arenas, the only time it was useful is when you were doing fucking platforming to get a secret, which is interesting that you guys don't bring that up as, you know, fluff or filler, saying right there, but we'll skip over that. And the melee was dog shit in the game. There was no point of it in late game. So id looked at that and thought, how do we make it where using the melee is more of a tactic and you can use it to your advantage? And someone thought, how about we make a super punch?
Okay, so I was extremely confused by his rebuttal to this. They are literally in agreement with him about the melee being useless in Doom Eternal, and his counter is, well, they have a super punch, when that's clearly not what they are talking about when it comes to the melee in the game. The whole point of why Rags and Moriarty bring it up is to ask why even have the animation for it if it serves no purpose, and you just stated that Doom Eternal's mission was to remove the fat of 2016, apparently, but seem to have overlooked this?
Combat. It just seems like you didn't learn anything about the game, Rags, which is understandable because for some reason you think learning a game in 11 hours is enough time for you to know, oh yeah, the game's shit, when in reality you don't understand it at all. I mean, your standards are actually really bad for video games. For some reason you like Hellblade and I have no fucking clue why. Actually, I do know why. Because you care more about the story than the gameplay. Even though you say you don't, you think gameplay is more important, Hellblade is a good example of this. Hellblade's a dog shit game that has a decent story. The gameplay is fucking awful. Some reason you liked Youngblood, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and I cannot for the life of me understand that decision. It just tells me that your standards are terrible. You have shitty standards for video games.
Alright, dude. I can't help but think you're projecting just a little bit about someone's preferences to certain games over yours. More importantly, Rax has gone on record saying that the gameplay of Hellblade is not that good, and that Youngblood has a lot of problems in spite of his belief that the gameplay loop is at least cogent. Which, if you remembered him talking about those games, you'd realize why he likes certain aspects of those games. Also, couldn't I just as easily say that you've no concept of how video games work because you believe that everyone else that just had a normal expectation of what a first-person shooter is to curb that perspective in service of just Doom Eternal? And never did I hear Rags ever say in this stream or even future streams that Doom Eternal is a shit game, so I don't know where you're getting that from unless you think anyone mildly critical of this game means they just think it's awful. So that says a lot of how you're going to run interference for this game.
I tested it once. It was 15 hits, and then the low-level zombie, killed me. So it does absolutely nothing. What I'm saying is that while, sure, you have the option to use a blood punch to gain a little bit of space or, knock some armor off or something, there's no reason why the flamethrower and the ice and frag grenade and all these other things need to be there to do what, right? Like, there's no reason that you couldn't have had some of them combined to increase the usability of each one.
How about no?
No, that's shitty. They did that in 2016 and it was fucking shitty. Remember how glory kills used to give you ammo and armor, but the ammo and armor it gave you was barely anything? 5 fucking armor? What am I gonna do with 5 armor? What the fuck? What am I gonna do with, like, 1 more shotgun shell? I mean, holy fuck. It was terrible. And on top of that, I would say I had to chainsaw more in 2016 than I did in Eternal, which might shock a lot of people, but it's true. Because, again, the dominant strategy, siege mode, kills everything.
Again, I have to agree with him here because I'm not a fucking contrarian, but nevertheless, I would say that the problem with the items that you have is that they aren't primarily used for enemy disposal so much as setting up the next key to survival, which I find a bit counterintuitive to how you would think those weapons should be used, like the chainsaw.
I don't think you can do that. I think you have all. I don't know what difficulty level are you playing on.
Nightmare.
Okay, that's good. That's why I started the game. So like, I don't understand how you don't have the option to approach whatever conflict that you're going into whatever way that you want.
So what is the purpose of the flamethrower?
It's to give you an armor loop so that you can recharge your armor because, like I said before, you don't have pickups on the ground that are going to be respawning necessarily.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of the flamethrower because the flamethrower doesn't exactly do a heck of a lot of damage. It's for the armor.
So it is exclusively for armor.
Basically.
Sort of a
So why is that separated from the chainsaw, or why is that separated from a glory kill? How come a glory kill can't give you armor? How come a glory kill can't give you ammo or health?
Because that's not its purpose. That would be fucking stupid, and it would be going back to 2016, making it pointless. Because armor was fucking pointless in that game and had no purpose whatsoever. So why not make an item that does one thing very good and allowing you to combo this certain item with other items?
Like a broken record, I'm having to restate that I have no disagreement, although I wish that he'd address what Dasbo's shit said about how the Flame Belch isn't used to deal damage primarily, over exclusively giving you armor, similarly to how the chainsaw isn't used to deal with threats so much as give you ammo.
Well, that's where I'm coming from, but objectively, the argument is like comparing apples and oranges almost. They're very different games in what they prioritize.
Of course they're. Well, that's what so that's literally what I said, is that if you are a fan of Doom 2016, Doom Eternal is not Doom 2016 too.
Right?
That was
Play
literally.
Eternal was
I don't know.
fundamentally the same as the way I played 2016.
I'm sorry?
The way I played Eternal was fundamentally the same as the way I played 2016.
Then you either played 2016 wrong or you played Eternal wrong.
Well, that was idiotic. Off to hang myself. Off and left.
No, actually, cryfuck, you're the one that's been playing the game wrong since 2016. Where they got the idea from Eternal was from 2016's foundation. You can play 2016 exactly like Eternal, it's just slower. And on top of that, I don't know why you keep doing this shitty argument like, oh, it shouldn't have been Doom 2016 2. If you're expecting Doom 2016 2, this is not it. Like, why is that a fucking problem? I don't fucking understand your logic whatsoever. Making shitty excuses because you made a shitty fucking video a year before the game came out, and you just want to make sure you're right. You're forcing yourself to be right in the long run. You're dead ass fucking wrong. You don't understand this game at all. You don't understand the Doom games at all. Actually, in fact, you don't understand any fucking game. How about you just stick to your shitty indie games and keep revealing bullshit, alright? When it comes to an actual video game that has good game mechanics, good level design, smart AI, and forces you to go into its mechanics and learn the fucking game, you just pussy out.
I find it funny how ABP would state that Doom Eternal built itself off the foundation of Doom 2016, when up to this point he's done nothing but shit on Doom 2016 to give credence to it. A bit of a stepping on the footsteps of giants moment, isn't it? Also, while I do take issue with Moriarty stating that you played either game wrong, I find it a bit of a stretch for you to act like from that alone he doesn't understand any game, much less a Doom game. And he doesn't defend that video because he got memed the shit out of, and made a longer video giving much better clarification of what he was trying to get across, something you apparently weren't aware of when making this video. It's just so infantile to have you collectively lose your shit because someone had some not so elaborated perspectives on the game, while you yourself barely elaborate on why those perspectives are wrong. I am much harsher about my issues with this game than those two ever were in that stream, and this is the way you react to the most innocuous of criticism in regards to it?
Same with Rags. It's one of the reasons why he doesn't like Dark Souls, because he doesn't like the game forcing him for some shitty reason why he likes to play shitty ass Youngblood or fucking bullshit Hellblade. Because they're piss easy and he doesn't have to use his fucking brain because he doesn't have one.
Yep, more of those lovely ad-homs he's run away in his mind when never has Regs really stated any strong opinion about Dark Souls, other than he finds it odd how the game doesn't convey how useful certain items are, like with rings that give you a boost to health or stamina regen. Also, Dark Souls, Hellblade, and Youngblood are all different genres of games, so yeah, I'm sorry that Rags has a certain preference to a game that you find shit in your opinion. And who exactly are you to say confidently that these games are shit and Doom Eternal the pinnacle? Because really, I don't find any of the combat of the game to be particularly intelligent in the slightest. But the difference is, I'm not going to make an assumption about your character simply because you enjoy playing it. But I will make assumptions about your character based on how you defend it. And with this nearing its close, you're immature, irrationally upset, and incapable of charity to your detractors. I mean, I can state from experience myself. The moment you could smell blood in the water, you took the chance to bite my fucking head off when I tried to be cordial to you about a game I take issue with. Is this your default state, or do you think it makes your points cogent? Because the only thing I'm going to walk away from discussions like this is that it's impossible for you to concede anything wrong about this game, despite you stating there are flaws with it.
So, again, Doom 2016...
What was I doing wrong in either game? How are they different so fundamentally?
Well, give me a second. Okay. So, Doom 2016 is all about combat forward, right? So you're aggressive, there are no weak points on enemies, there's nothing like that, right? So the whole point is to constantly be moving forward. The flaw of that, of course, being that most of the time you're just going to use a super shotgun, you're going to run up there and you're just going to lay waste to everything, right? With Doom Eternal, the combat loop is more of a tactical approach to it. So you will be more defensive, moving to disengage from certain enemies in order to gather ammunition, armor, or health from the various trash mobs around, right? So to engage exclusively aggressively with no care about enemy weak points like the cacodemons and the shotgun, right? The shotgun grenade, or knocking the tails off of the spiders, right? If you're not engaging in the weak point loops that are inherent in Doom Eternal, right, then you are not playing it at peak efficiency. Not playing it wrong, but peak efficiency.
How about you go fuck yourself with your peak efficiency shit? Watch your fucking gameplay. It's pathetic. You're not even playing at peak efficiency if you want to go that fucking route, you dumb fuck. Look how I play. In your words, this is peak efficiency. Swapping my weapons. I don't see me not actually going for the weak point system because I don't really need to, and I don't really care that much for it. Notice how I just fucking slaughter the arenas because I know the game and I know how to use my weapons properly. See how I'm not just shooting a grenade to the cacademon's mouth? According to you, that's not peak efficiency, but I don't give a fuck. The way I'm doing it works perfectly fine, and it's actually way better than shooting a grenade in the mouth, like I explained earlier. I don't have to wait for a shitty animation. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be super accurate with my aim. All I have to do is shoot it twice, glory kill, fucking gone. Or lock on rockets where I don't have to do shit. You're not the one playing at peak efficiency. Your gameplay is horse shit. I bet I can have a 5-year-old play better than you. So how about you shove that peak efficiency right up your fucking ass and go fuck yourself?
This is the guy that is trying to convince you that Doom Eternal is for smart people, while blatantly admitting he doesn't care about the weak point system and just spams mindlessly. Fucking bravo, dude. But on top of that, the dude that can only counter with what someone is saying is, you dumb fuck, stupid fuck, idiot fuck, like he just learned what the word fuck was yesterday and is running with it until the cows come home, wants to convince me he's smarter than the people he's responding to. If you happen to find this video, please enlighten me, British Potato. How do you think this is going to sound to Crymore when he hears it? Do you really think he's going to be convinced by the way you address yourself to him? Hell, take what I've said about your video now. Do you think that while maybe I've thrown a few of my own insults here that I at least tackled the meat of your argument rather than just calling you a stupid dumb fuck every other word in a sentence? That at least I'm trying to take you at your word, even for as rambly as I can get here, with some charitability?
With Eternal, you have to play defensively more often simply by the fact that you have to disengage from combat in order to gather armor, health, and ammo.
No, you fucking don't, you dumb shit. Look how I play. Notice how I go after the bigger enemies and I flame belch ice bomb and the little enemies are usually around them. I don't have to do jack fuck, alright? And even when I'm chainsawing the enemies, I'm still engaging with the combat because usually they're right next to the bigger enemies. All these enemies work together, okay? Your shitty point that you have to disengage from combat to collect armor and health and ammo is just fucking a straight out bullshit. You can do it while you're fighting. It's just that you have to use your fucking brain, think outside the box, and have a goddamn imagination, which no one on this goddamn panel knows what the fuck that is.
Most of his dribbling nonsense is most of what I've already countered prior, and it doesn't help that once again he places himself as though he's the smartest person in the room and that no one else gets it when he simultaneously only has the intelligence of mind to just dole out slurs at the ready. I mean, I've gone on rants before, but usually I try to refrain from repeating redundant words over and over again, and more importantly, not have them on record and find them illuminating.
Why don't you have to do
I don't. That's not the. That's the opposite of what Doom Eternal is designed as like. That's the whole point I was trying to make earlier about the chainsaw and the flamethrower. Maybe you're the one playing the game wrong.
Maybe.
Yeah, having to go around and collect things from the arena isn't really what the game tells you to do. I mean, sure, it does in small bits here and there, but ideally you can get everything that you need from being aggressive. Health, armor, and ammo, all. And if you need it, you have to be able to kill enemies to do it. It's fully aggressive.
Okay.
Do you guys find it funny how those two guys put Crymore in a fucking corner telling him how bad his point is? And his only response is, okay. How much of a dismissive piece of fucking shit do you have to be? Like, honestly. Own up when you make a mistake, you fucking dumb fuck.
Oh, but surely you were never ever dismissive of what any of the peeps were talking about so far in regards to them. Have you? Also, how is it that your only takeaway from him saying okay is that he's being dismissive? It sounds like he's meekly conceding because ultimately this conversation is just a matter of hearsay and not going anywhere really. Like, what mistake exactly did Glib call out? He just threw Moriarty's words back at him, and Das went on a different tangent about ammo pickups in the level.
I think there's a lot of the issues are because I would have to if I cared about Doom and I was gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go in and really kind of see if I was gonna do a Fallout 76 on mechanics and all that stuff.
Oh, please, Rags. I'm sure even you would admit that you would need more time in the fucking game to do something like what you did with Fallout 76. And if you're gonna tell me, well, it doesn't matter how long I play a game, then why did you mention that you played the game for 67 hours of Fallout 76 if it doesn't really matter at the end of the day how many hours you put into a video game? Because to me, it just seems like if you're gonna do something like this, I would hope that you play it multiple times to really understand what the game is. Because most of your points right now is because you played 11 hours of the game and didn't understand jack fuck what it was trying to teach you. And yeah, I get it. You're good at other first-person shooters. You're good at Halo, but this isn't like other first-person shooters.
And that's really the problem with Doom Eternal, isn't it? That everyone else has to bend backwards their conventions in order to make the not like the other girls of first-person shooters feel welcome. That we have to pretend that whatever sordid attempt at a game loop it tries to convey, that it's somehow the intentions of the game and that we are wrong for seeing it as flawed. As an aside, what point are you trying to make here? You're literally arguing against a hypothetical straw man of Rags when obviously I think he would put more hours in the game, but as he and you already stated, he doesn't care that much to elaborate on it, which is also why I don't understand your animosity to him if you recognize he's largely indifferent to the experience. Now, I know that Rags has a knack for pulling the I don't care card when it comes to topics he's of little knowledge on but likes to talk like he's an expert on. But with this game, he seems genuinely disinterested in the topic altogether. So why you think this is a gotcha when this is assuming he would make the video and that however many hours he plays is irrelevant to him is just odd to me.
There's definitely things that are odd to me. The knowing if you could chainsaw an enemy if you have enough fuel before you pull out the chainsaw and try to do it. I don't know how off the top of my head, but I do wish there was a way to tell if the enemy you're about to chainsaw can be chainsawed with the fuel that you have.
You do know when you're in a loading screen, there's this great little thing called tips that shows up on the top left telling you all these interesting things about the mechanics of the game. And one of them actually shows a diagram, right? Telling you how the chainsaw fucking operates. 1 pip for fodder, 3 pips for heavies, no pips for super heavies. Now you might be wondering, okay, how am I supposed to figure out which ones are heavies and super heavies? That's when you go into Codex and read and look at it. Or you can just figure it out just by human error. So this does exist in the game. And again, this is a problem that was in Doom 2016. I just find it odd that you would bring up these criticisms for Eternal, but 2016 gets us life for it. It's just strange to me how you guys critique shit.
And when did Ryan specifically mention praising 2016 for this exact mechanic? Because all he said was that he liked playing 2016 more than Eternal. So it's really up to speculation what of the game interested him more than Eternal. But this is yet again the same whataboutism repackaged when convenient, because even if they didn't mention that being a problem in 2016, that doesn't forgive Eternal for doing the same thing.
I think that it's very odd that when you upgrade your dash, then dashing over and over and over is way faster than running. That's one of those things where I can't see anything objectively wrong with it. It's just really odd that dashing becomes better than W.
Fucking roll! How is that odd? I'm confused on your point here. Dashing is faster than well, no shit, it's a fucking dash. I mean, the fuck is your point here? What? I'm sorry? Because the dash refills kinda fast once you get it upgraded. It's a problem because I can dash faster than pressing W. And on top of that, there is no sprint in the game. I don't know if you knew this, but there's no sprint. So, yeah, I don't see your fucking problem with that. Like, what's wrong with dashing being faster than W? It's a dash. Other games have done it like this for many years. Overkill has the same way where dashes refill pretty quick, and you have 3 of them in that game. Your point's very strange here.
Did you forget to mention the part where Rag states that he can't find anything objectively wrong with the aforementioned? Because I didn't, and I'm sure what he finds odd is that he does make the running a bit redundant. Remember that whole cutting the fat that Doom Eternal apparently set to accomplish? To dashing, and I've found myself often doing bunny hops subconsciously as a result, too.
I like that we got out of Doom 1, and we were out of this Martian thing, and we were hitting Earth, and then it felt like landing in Duke Nukem the first time. I really
didn't like that. So when I first loaded up the game, we are floating above Earth. We have a space fortress now.
Hell
We've
yeah.
got Vega installed inside of it. Earth has already been invaded.
Mhm.
We've got all this stuff and a new suit, and we're just here now.
And it's like 20 years
From
later.
a gameplay perspective, sure, it doesn't impact that really, but I feel like we missed an entire game between 2016 and now that established how, like, all the stuff that happened in between.
Oh, since we're gonna talk about consistency, let's talk about 2016's opening. Why are you all of a sudden in a fucking coffin when in the last game, what happened is that you're stuck in hell? What happened between that? You didn't get the answers to that until Eternal, believe it or not. So, what the fuck is your point here? This is something that's just in Doom games. The stories don't really fucking matter, and like, I just don't understand why that matters to you. I guess people were connected to the character Samuel Hayden, and I don't exactly know why. Why did people like Samuel Hayden exactly?
Well, here we go on yet another elaboration of why not only is this a whataboutism, but just a clear dismissal of what Rags is getting at. To start, 2016 wasn't a follow-up of Doom 3. As I'm somewhat familiar with Doom 3, the player character is not the Doom guy from Doom 1 and 2. He's just a random marine who waltzed his way through hell and back. Eternal is supposed to be a follow-up of Doom 2016, and with the cliffhanger ending of 2016, most people figured there'd be some closure to that, but nope. Instead, there is all this other shit that happened in betwixt, with the Doom guy seemingly unbothered with the invasion of Earth, despite it apparently having gone on for quite some time. Now, you say that the story doesn't really fucking matter, which I'm sure the devs would love to hear from a supposed Doom Eternal fan, that one of the big aspects of the game they worked on is just completely immaterial to them, that they might as well not even tried. But don't you think that it's a bit out of character for the Doom guy just to watch Earth become consumed by the denizens of hell until pressing it to the plot, when it's very clear from Doom 2016 that he absolutely does not want what happened at the UAC facility to fall upon the masses of Earth? You talk a lot about how other people make stupid points. What kind of point are you making exactly by saying that the story doesn't matter, when the whole point of what Rags is saying is that it puts great emphasis on the story mattering? That's not even a rebuttal or counter. It's literally just saying ignore parts of the game in order to make the game look good in your eyes. Dumbfounding.
Sure, yeah, that would be fair.
I almost thought that the first mission was actually a
flash forward,
like a flashback,
Vidyas
or
whatever.
yes, or like it'd be like in Metroid where you lose all this stuff and you have to get it back. I feel like the way it started and the pacing of how it began was really badly done. Like I didn't think that the first level was actually really the first level. I thought this was a story thing that was trying to set up something mechanically, but
It was trying to set up something mechanically. Well, it did. It set up how to swap your mods with the guns, taught you how to move around, taught you how to shoot, taught you about these interesting weak points that were brand new into this game. It taught you all these interesting things, and I don't get how you thought it was a prequel. You didn't think it was the first mission. I just don't get it. You start off in the game with nothing. Just a shotgun and double jump, and that's all you fucking have. And you thought we were gonna get our things taken away? Like, what? How fucking stupid do you have to be to think of something like that, Rags? I understand that you don't have a very smart brain anymore. You used to be very smart, but now you're just a fucking dumb fuck and don't understand game design, or how games are paced at all. For some reason, you thought the first cutscene was a fucking flashback. I can't imagine anyone coming out of the game for the first time thinking the beginning was a fucking flashback. What the fuck? At the end of 2016, they even set up that demons were going to invade Earth, and why Samuel hooked you up and took the crucible for himself because he wanted to go defend Earth. I guess you just weren't paying attention to the story at this point, Rags.
Okay, how dumb are you? Go back to that part of the stream. Rags thought that the beginning level was a flashback because of the sheer jump between the ending of 2016 and Eternal was. And when he said it'd be like a Metroid setting where you lost all your shit, he's not saying that you somehow had it all and then nothing, but that you'd have to start fresh from a new game. Oh, and it's funny how you brought up the story of 2016 when you just said that the story didn't fucking matter, but now it does, to try to act as though Rags ignored it. When what actually happened in 2016 was that Samuel Hayden wanted to use the Crucible to channel the Argent energy for Earth's use, which caused said invasion, not that an invasion would happen regardless, and that Hayden needed a contingency to fight back against it. Now, I'm not going to call you a dumbass for not remembering, just simply that you might have forgot some key details, but maybe I'm done with the charitability that I can give to you, seeing as you spare none for anyone else who doesn't awe at your wisdom, because that's about it for what you have to offer. You keep iterating that you don't care about the story despite admitting it's a mess, which I guess is the only flaw of the game that you see, despite also wanting to state that you'd only play it for the gameplay when the story is right up in your face compared to 2016. Of course, this wasn't the last that British Potato wanted to burn his bridges, as more than just me noted how harsh he was being at the stream, and he wanted to counter by pointing out how Rags can be mean, using a example of a Discord chat in question of someone trying to snipe at Rags about a sacred cow, and Rags asked which, and the dude refused to answer. Of course, Rags took umbrage with this, as he felt it was familiar to a conversation EFAP had with someone who was being extremely dodgy with their questions because they knew they didn't want to answer them, and apparently this to ABP isn't any way comparable to what he's done here. It's like APP doesn't really understand that there's a scale to which someone can be mean or rude or harsh, and that he thinks that Rags did here was anywhere comparable to saying that Rags is a retard and that Moriarty is dismissive. And it doesn't help that he stands by the way he went about it, when myself and Playmore would state that this would not convince the parties in question to his side, only embolden them. As one final olive branch I can give, I didn't find their stream on the game to be all that productive or cogent, when they barely went 45 minutes into a 10-hour stream where it's presented as the thumbnail of said podcast episode. I kind of wish Rags cared a bit more, or that either him or Moriarty at least had some notes jotted down to elaborate on what they're getting at. Maybe you could say I only wanted this so that they could tear more into the other parts of the game that are conflicting with itself or are just annoying to deal with. Pink goo, jump scare, tentacles, and the like. But I imagine if they did, it would help British Potato not have to jump to such conclusions about their knowledge on the game. And after the dust has completely settled, you'd wonder why it took me this long, or why I even bother talking about a 1-year response to an over 2-year stream, and respectively the Under the Mayo vids are pretty old in terms of internet years. As I've said in the beginning and plenty of times when it comes to other videos prior, I don't really care if the topic I'm talking about is necessarily relevant to the now. Sure, I've made videos on relevant topics, but my interests always permeate the things I've seen of yore. And these videos in question have always burned in the back of my throat that it would only douse it if I had done responded to them. And now I can rest easy knowing that my thoughts on Doom Eternal are well required here to be preserved for all time, or as long as this channel exists. I hope I don't have to make this blatantly clear, but please do not harass, dox, or attempt to flag their channels or their videos if you happen to agree with the way I criticized it. It's not going to help me or you if you do so, and if you've been someone who's watched my channel for any amount of time, should know better than I'm not at all about that. Of course, if the two parties take umbrage with me using their videos fairly, I'll obviously dispute it, and just to be certain that won't happen, I'll even link to the original videos in question so that there is no ambiguity to what I'm responding to. I hope you enjoyed this semi-long endeavor into both my problems with Doom Eternal and the way that people defend it, and eagerly await when I explore my next endeavor.